Okay, we'll begin the meeting. First item on the agenda is a public comment session. Generally, that's people who are here who want to make any kind of statement. Usually, it's an issue that they have with something going on. But so that is open to everybody here. If there's anybody who has a comment or a question in general that they want to ask, the floor is open. If not, we'll go ahead with the regular meeting. The first item is the approval of the minutes from the last meeting, from the workshop and the board meeting. Does anyone have any comments or questions about those minutes? I'm sure you've all seen them. They're in your packages. Hearing none, they are approved as presented.
Can I point out one thing
Yes.
just here, and I assume our crowd has something to do with this. Can you go to the end, Dudley, where we did the resolution?
Right there.
Okay, the resolution of the Clinton Utility Board. Be it resolved by the Board of Directors of the Clinton Utility Board that the board supports Greg Fay in hiring and setting salaries and has the board's full confidence and support, and the motion passed unanimously. I made that motion, and Zach Farah seconded it, and we just approved that, so I don't want us to lose focus of that.
Okay.
That's what we decided.
It was, I think everybody remembers that. It was.
Okay. Just want to bring that to everybody's attention, to our board.
Okay, next item would be the vouchers. Again, you have the list of all of the approved vouchers for the month. Are there any corrections that need to be made? Any questions about any of those? Hearing none, those are also approved as presented. Now we'll get into the regular monthly reports. We'll start with the financial reports. Mr. Fagan?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Before you got the revenue and expense summary for the fiscal year through January 2019. For January, the electric department had a net income of $181,000. The water and sewer department had a net income of $246,500. Let me explain that just a little bit. They had a net loss before capital contributions of $25,000. $272,000 in capital contributions. That $270,000 of that is that grant that we have. That money, $270,000, came in on this Eagle Bend pump project of that grant. We still have more coming. It's up to 300. We can get up to 365. I don't know that it'll get to that because it's a percentage thing, but that's what we received, and that's what made the water department look so good for the month. The actual year to date, the electric department is $520,000 ahead of the forecast. The water and sewer is $107,000 ahead of the forecast, but keep in mind that grant money came in early. Without that, we're $175,000 behind the forecast right there. I can get into more specifics if you want, but that pretty much sums it up.
Dudley, does that change the thing we were talking about last month about being looked at by the state?
Capital contributions are not counted by the state. It is that number right there before the capital contributions. They used to let us count it, but they changed that rule last year.
Okay.
So it does not.
So you're forecasting that we will be in the red.
Most likely, yes, sir.
This
Barring a real hot spring, which is, or dry spring.
first year or second year?
This would be the second year.
What do you think we should do to fix it?
Have to look at rates for next year,
Okay.
I think. Yes, sir.
Any more questions for Mr. Fagan? Okay, we'll go to the project status reports. Start with the engineering. Greg, are you doing those?
Yes, sir. We've got 3 projects on our project status report. One is the The aerial cable in Norris are last of 3 phases of that. We're in construction on that, and we should be complete that project in June of this year. It's taken us years, and we've done, I think, a real fine job raising that, what we call a Veteran 4 kV system. It's a 4,000 volt system. We raised it up to what the industry standard is, which is a 13 kV system. About 80% of all of the overhead line in the country for distribution is at 13. So essentially, we're just bringing that up to modern day voltage, and that has improved our ability to for Norris and that community. That's about 3 megawatts that can hold that 4 kV, and that's about 1,500 houses. With 13,000 on there, we've increased that to probably about 4,000 houses on that size of conductor. So that's all going well, and we should have that completed on time and on schedule. We've got aerial cable going up on West Broad Street. That project upgrades what we consider a critical segment of the electric infrastructure in downtown Clinton. This project is going to give us flexibility, especially with Flizzer, and our ability to change load. It ties our River sub with our Clinton sub, which are our 2 biggest subs, so we're really into our ability to do load transfer, and that has really expanded that flexibility. So we look forward to that completion. Construction is complete on that. They just don't have all of the POST that goes with that in order to close that work order. Longmire Road, this is our continuing upgrade of the facilities in order to affect how we automatically do our Flizzer, our sectionalizing, locating, and it's given us a lot more flexibility, even what we do manually. And this is, while it's just getting started, we don't have any reason to believe this won't be done on time and on budget. So those are the 3 projects we currently have, Mr. Chairman. And unless there's any other questions, I'll sit here quietly.
Will the Longmire Road upgrade add capacity to the?
Always, as we increase the size of conductor, we have capacity. But part of, I guess, the impetus of this is to give us reliability for transferring load, and that is because we have that capability through our Flizzer system. So it's about load transfer, and it also, because we're looking at 795. This is all copper conductor in there. The size of that wire, it makes a difference. The larger that conductor, the more it can hold, and that gets down to we ought to be in good shape there for quite some time.
There was some words or a rumor or whatever about people looking at that property on the upper side out of the city on Longmire Road. If a subdivision in fact went in there, would this upgrade support that?
Yes, although the facility on that line would support that. I mean, I know where you're talking about right there. That shouldn't be a problem at all.
Any more questions on the engineering side? Mr. Hawkins, are you going to do the water and sewer?
I am. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We're tracking one project. This is the upgrade 2 pump stations in Mariner Point. It's the only project that we have that's over 50,000 in progress. This project, similar to what we had last month that closed, is now closing out on the Eagle Bend upgrades. 2 pump stations. When the equipment arrives, they'll put it in place. The contractors has mobilized. The equipment should be on site this month. The 30% complete has been tracking the same for the last few months while we're waiting for the equipment to be here. But at this time, we plan to complete the project on schedule and on time by the end of this fiscal year, June 2019.
Thank you, Dan. Next item, we have a closing report here.
Unless there's a question on that, Mr. Chairman, I've got nothing to add.
Same with you, Dan?
Yes.
Next item is the approval of work order number 1050. And I guess,
Yes, sir.
Mr. Fay?
This work order 1050 is also a 795 all aluminum cable. It's an aerial cable that we're going to have on Sunset. This work order is the final major work order in our capital outlay for this budget year, and we've just completed engineering on it. This replaces about 1/10 of a mile of 3/0 ACSR. It's aluminum core with steel reinforcement. Primary of about 3/10 of a mile of number 6 copper primary along Sunset with 6/10 of a mile of 795 cable, aerial cable. This will complete a tie line between Charles Severs Boulevard and Hillcrest. The initial estimate included the budget from last year for this project was $275,000, but after engineering, our final estimate is now $278,360. As with the West Broad Street upgrade that we just completed and the Longmire upgrade we're currently working on, this will give us greater flexibility and options when it comes to routine switching and also our automated FLISR system. Now that we've got a system-wide deployed FLISR system, we continually, with every outage, it appears, and some of these fellows will know even better than I, this automatic isolation and restoration of service, we make contributions. That's how we got FLISR to begin with, is we made annual contributions in order to build the infrastructure which allows us to deploy this system-wide. And in that, now that the system is up, now we're identifying those weak points, and we are making the contribution to build and rebuild in those weak points to give us the better flexibility for reliability for our customers. And we'll continue to do that. With a working system, it'll only improve the system. And that's what this work order represents.
I think has to be noted that with the recent spat of storms that we've had, CUB's reliability has been outstanding.
Thank you.
Especially compared to all of the neighboring utilities.
Thank you.
Okay, is there a motion to approve work order 1050?
So move.
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, saying no. Work order is approved. Next item will be the approval of the CUB pension plan, and I think, Dudley, you're
Yes,
covering that,
sir.
right?
Actually, it's not approval of the plan, it's approval of the fiduciary oversight review, which is something we do quarterly with Bob Cross and them, and he looks at our investments. It's something that board member Farah brought up, that we should get this approved by the board. They go through, they analyze all their investments to make sure that their pension money is invested in safe things, and make recommendations as to whether we should change those. At this time, there were no changes at all recommended. Everything is in what they appear to be good investments. We currently have, I looked today, we have $13,900,000 invested. And this is a big, full report if you want to look through all that, but there's a lot of information in there. But basically, all it's saying is that we're all good, all our investments are solid, and they don't recommend any changes at this time. And we ask for your approval of that report.
Does Mr. Farr participate in that in any way?
No. I've looked at the fiduciary oversight review here in this pension plan. The pension plan is very important to several people in this room.
Probably a lot of people.
How it's invested is significant to your future. So this board, and in order to exercise our fiduciary duties and to protect general and senior management, will approve what is being done. Okay? For a side note, I have some experience with fiduciary trust work. And what I see is a balanced, diversified pension plan. So you need to be invested. Diversification is a very key fundamental to your pension plan. It has the requisite diversification, okay? So you don't want to put, quote, all your eggs in one basket. Also, we want to be sensitive to fees. So I've questioned this gentleman that runs our investment program about their fee. They're very low on fees. They are fiduciary, which means they owe you the highest duty of care. And I gave him a laundry list of questions, and that gentleman answered them all not just satisfactorily, he answered them very well and extremely well. I am confident that your pension plan, as of today, is in good hands. What I don't know, and what I cannot predict, nor can he predict, is when will people fly airplanes into buildings. That type of thing is an unknown, and that would have catastrophic, effect on any of us in the market. But you have a sound investment plan, and you have a great pension plan, and it's something that you ought to be proud of, and it's something that we want to protect and we want to grow. So I make a motion that we approve the pension plan. It's just really a report.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? No. Thank you, Dudley. That is approved. As many of you probably know, or at least some of you know, we've been for several months now going through workshops and follow-ups to workshops to try to find ways to encourage more residential development in Clinton and the surrounding area. Many studies recently and going back a few years have always come to the conclusion that Clinton is in a uniquely favorable position to really become a growth and destination type community. We have the waterfront, we have the historic downtown, we have industrial parks that employ thousands of people, but we do not have the residential structure to house the people. So many of them commute in from Campbell County, Union County, places like that, where it would be a great benefit to Clinton if they lived here, paid taxes here, bought groceries here, went to restaurants here. And so that's the impetus behind the workshops that we've been having. And we've made several changes to policies to try to encourage and help assist developers to get some projects going. We've been through kind of the low-hanging fruit, made some changes that deal with easements and how restrictive they might be and stuff like that. But we have a few big ones left. And that's the next part of this, the agenda, is to go over some of the recommendations that have bubbled up from developers and from consultants who have come through, and see about incorporating those into the policies that we have here. Mr. Farr, Zach has consolidated these, and the way this works, he will make motions to do something. If there is a second to that motion, then it opens up for discussion, and people can amend it, they can ask questions about it. But after we go through that process and we have it in a stable condition, then is when you vote on whether or not to approve it or not. So it's kind of a cumbersome procedure, but that's the way Roberts says that you do it, Robert's rules. So I'll turn the meeting over now to Zach to go through his items.
I asked developers for input, what they would like to see. I believe that our community needs to grow. And I believe that rooftops and additional rooftops is desirable. I believe that a part of Clinton Utility Board, as it is delineated in Title 18, which is sort of our constitution, for lack of a better word, charges us to operate, maintain, but also to enlarge and extend, preserve, and promote the utility. So part of that is extending, promoting, and enlarging. So in the spirit of that mission, I asked developers to give me an idea of what they would like to see. Doesn't mean that the developers get everything that they want. But what I do feel that they deserve is a vote by the board, yes or no, on their requests. The board has spent a great deal of time on this and a great deal of effort. And so in that, and having said that, the first motion that I'm going to make is that I make a motion to amend CUB's policy to allow the waiving on tap fees on residential developments in excess of 20 units where the project at its sole cost has purchased the material and installed the sanitary sewer system inside the development boundaries, having only one point of connection to the existing CUB system, thus requiring no work or financial investment on CUB's part. That is my first motion.
Is there a second to that motion?
I'll second.
Motion has been made and seconded. Is there any discussion?
I think we need to let Greg Fay respond to this. Now, he's the head of CUB, so he has the right and the responsibility to tell us what he thinks. So
Right.
would you tell us what you think about this?
Yes, I'll be happy to. I support, first of all, whatever the board decides. I cannot give you a comprehensive response since I haven't really looked at what the specifics, but in general, the waiving of a developer's tap fee in a development, when all of that is being accomplished by the developer, makes good sense to me. I don't believe that it's the same as if we had to do the tap ourselves. And I think essentially what I gather from that is if a developer is going to develop a subdivision and the tap fees that you're referring to are water and sewer, and that all of and we're sitting there with a meter box, and we're sitting there essentially with an approved tap into the main, and we have an opportunity to inspect that and per our specifications, should they pay the $450 per tap? And that's what we were talking about waiving. I guess the disjointed part of that is the developer normally wouldn't pay that tap to begin with. They would be required to, on all of those things that we just said, but they would not be assessed a tap fee. So to waive a tap fee would be to waive it for the builder, not for the developer. Am I understanding that is part of what you're suggesting? Because there is no tap assessed to the developer. The requirements are there, but there is no tap fee. The tap fee comes when the house is built, and then they come in and apply for service. And that historically and traditionally has been that is their contribution to having that water and sewer available for that subdivision. It's almost like an impact fee, if you will, you know, and that hasn't been clarified, but there is no, so to waive a tap fee for a developer, there's nothing to waive. To waive a tap fee for the homeowner, the builder, that would be different, and that's certainly your prerogative. I just point that out. I'm not sure how that meshes with specifically what you're saying.
I would think we'd be waiving the tap fee that the developer who's also building the home would be seeking to. I mean, I think we'd be waiving that tap fee.
Again, if the developer is the end builder,
Yes, sir.
then there's no problem with that at all. We understand what we're giving up is that contribution to the system, which is fine, but that would be the reality of that. So, again, you can't say, I think it would be better to say more clear, to say that for the builder, you know, for the end user, for the homeowner,
Fine, and I'm fine. I mean, the motion can be amended to reflect those words.
so if you would like, we'll be glad to look at that and to phrase it up to be more specific in how that is applied to the actual, your intent. I can word that to meet your intent, is what I'm saying, because I don't think it does that right now, from what I hear.
Okay, so what my motion was to amend the CB policy to allow waiving on tap fees on residential developments in excess of 20 units, where at the project, at the sole cost, has purchased the material, installed the sanitary sewer system inside the development boundaries, having only one point of connection to the existing CUB system, thus requiring no work or financial investment on CUB's part. What needs to be more specific?
Well, of course, if you're saying to the developer, I'm just saying
But
that,
I'm not gonna waive something he don't have to pay anyway.
well, that's essentially
I mean,
it, that's right.
That's a moot point. So I'd be seeking to incentivize development.
And building, and the building of the home.
Correct.
That's right. Well, that can be easily accomplished.
Steve?
Mr. Chairman, last meeting, we discussed, as long as we could come to a general consensus on the concept, Greg would have the opportunity to write an implementing document for each of these. So I think that's where the details could come out that they understand and
Okay.
work.
Okay, let me broaden this a little bit too. When one of these motions is made and seconded, and it's opened up for discussion like this, it's opened up to you people also. We're in an information gathering phase. We have some experts in here, a lot more expertise than we have on the board for sure. So just if somebody has something to be added or if wants something clarified, just raise your hand and I'll call on you and you can do that. That's, yes, Joe.
So I'd like to address the question, whether it's the chicken or the egg, the homeowner or the builder or the developer. What you're really trying to do is facilitate developing that attracts home builders. You don't really want, you may want this, but like Ball Homes could build 300 homes here all themselves. You may want that, but we would say it's easier for a developer to attract various homeowners or builders to come in. So it's the same thing if you're waiving the tap fee. The thing that the developer gets to do is know that he can pass on a connected system. And when he sells his lot, there's no additional tap charge. It's the same savings either way, but you can't leave the word developer out of it because then you're only passing this on to home builders. Well, that doesn't get it developed. It just gets a home built, and there's not enough lots around here the way it is. That's the problem. There should have lots. So I would say if you could broaden it to include both the developer and the builder, then you're going to accomplish your goal, and you're going to actually attract outside development.
But then I'd amend the motion to include homeowner and the developer, or the builder and the developer. I think we understand the spirit of what I'm trying to propose here, and I believe Greg does too, and I think at this point, I'm ready to call the question, up or down, yes or no.
Okay, yes.
I see that you've got basically three scenarios in this situation. You've got a developer that comes in and develops a piece of property that's got, say, 50 lots on it. And that same developer is also the builder. So therefore, the wording doesn't matter. You have a second situation where a developer comes in and develops the subdivision, but has a separate builder that builds the homes. That situation, it would need to be worded both ways because you're going to incentivize the building of the homes. Or you can have a third situation where the developer comes in, puts the roads and infrastructure in, and then sells individual lots for maybe multiple builders or individual builders to build those. So I would encourage the board to pass this with wording that would allow any of that, because in my conversations with builders, trying to get them to come here it's too restrictive.
Yeah.
And I have some personal friends that are builders in Knoxville that go in and buy 30 acres, put in the infrastructure and build every house in there. And they do it in a matter of months. And that's what I think we need, but however you word that, as long as we can encourage the development of some subdivision, whether it's the developer builder, developer and a second builder, or developer and individual builders, I think that's what we need to do.
And I think we agree with what you're saying, and it's just a matter of making sure that the wording covers that, and when a builder comes in, a prospective builder comes in, that we're able to convey that to them and they get to work. So, all those in favor of this motion as amended, and pending some wordsmithing by Mr. Fay, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed by saying no. Motion passes. Motion
All right.
2.
So, for those of you in the audience, there's 6 motions that I'm proposing, and I'm sensitive to your time. Motion 2, and the nature of this motion is going to be to change the prefabricated grinder sewage pump specifications to allow a competitive, effective alternative instead of a sole source specification. I make a motion to change portions of the policy of section 04400 prefabricated grinder sewage pump station so that it does not appear as a sole source specification for the Environmental One Corporation. The specification would allow at least one other pump brand that is interchangeable within the current system to promote competitive pricing. In addition to this specification, CUB shall allow consideration of centrifugal pumps to be used along with progressive cavity pumps as is currently specified. Said alternative shall have the same or better warranty as the current E1 requirement. That's my motion.
Is there a second to that motion? I'll second the motion. So are there questions or comments?
I think we need
Well, Greg can
Greg's
always speak
response.
up. I mean,
Well,
like
I
everybody's
want-
open to everyone.
Okay, I want his response next.
Well, we have, because we were, I guess, encouraged, which is a good exercise, to try to pre-identify. We have identified 2 other pumps other than the E1. It's the Zoeller pump and also the Liberty that we have, that we'll be glad to put the specifications out there. So there are 2 other pumps that we've gone through that process and have identified, as alternatives that would meet.
So that would meet the
Yes, sir.
I guess the ask of the motion.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
And both of those pumps will work with the current system that we
Well,
have.
what we would do is there's a lot that are not interchangeable, but by section. So if a developer wanted to come in and have a group, you know, because what we would try to do is is to put everything in the development under the same pump, because the heads are different going in and how all of that works. So we would have like pumps within a development. So they could have a section here. We would work with the developer in order to make sure that we had the parts and we had backup and all of those good things. And we think we can get the availability, get them fixed, and timely get out there and address an issue. When that red light's going off, people expect, well, you better hurry up and get something done. So our ability to get in there and get out of there, we've identified those two in addition to the E1s.
Do you have any problem with the centrifugal? If an entire development goes in with a centrifugal?
I'm going to refer that to Dan.
Both of these alternatives that we talked about, the Zoller and the Liberty, are both centrifugal pumps.
Okay. So they wouldn't be interchangeable, they would have to be a separate.
Well, yes, but it's not just the pump, it's the size of the force mains, it's the pipe that's used, it's the valving that's used. All of that, like Mr. Fay said, needs to be designed in one system.
Yeah.
So if you put in 50 homes, they all need to be the same, and then a line is sized for that number of stations, because you want that sewer to flow through the pipe. So either of these pumps will work in our system, but you can't go in and take one of these pumps and put it in an E1 bucket that's already there.
Do y'all know the relative cost of these two systems versus the E1?
I do not.
No. I guess you would bid like anything else, and the more you got, the better price you would get.
Does this motion intend to identify?
No.
Just leave it open-ended, the
Open.
fact that if we find one that works and everybody's kosher, we can, that's
use it.
acceptable. Okay.
Everybody have this common understanding on that? All those in favor? Oh, yes.
If I can put my 2 cents in on that, I'd recommend, you would think you would have.
Can you state your name and address, please?
Better not. That you would have like a vendor list, so to speak, like I think Greg and Shannon are talking about. And I'd even put on there as far as wording, this is just a suggestion, that those would be reviewed on a certain time basis, every year, every 2 years. Because things will come online, technology will change. But I think you need some type of vendor list, lack of a better word, to use.
That were flexible, and if something new came up, that you could add it to it.
Right.
Really?
Right. You may want, and you may need to drop something off.
Yeah.
For different reasons. Maybe there's a quality issue or, things like that.
Okay.
So how would you amend that, Mayor Burton?
That's your job, it's not mine. No, I would just recommend again, a vendor list approved by the board, and be reviewed on an annual basis.
Okay, so the amendment to the motion would be the motion as stated with the words, in addition to add an approved vendor list available to developers and builders.
Zach, there's 2 things in there that hit me. One, it says at least one other pump, as opposed just to saying other pumps. And interchangeable with the current system, I think we've said they may not be interchangeable. They may be, we may use them instead of the other one, but it would require a different base support system.
Okay, strike interchangeable.
Yeah.
Zach,
That's the question.
I'm a visual person, and I don't have anything in
That's
writing
what
that
I
I
was
can look
gonna
at.
say. Where did
Can
you
we get
all
a
get
copy of
these
this while we're
motions?
reading it?
I don't have it. Did you email that out to us?
No, they came from the board meeting, from the council meeting, actually.
I emailed these to, I believe I emailed these to everybody about a month ago.
Oh, I must have missed it. I didn't.
Can we get some copies?
Yeah.
Please.
So Penny and I didn't get it, and the 3 of you all do have it. Is that right? Okay. I'm a visual learner too. I'd like to see.
Dudley, Is there any way you could flash those up on the big screen so everybody can look at
I
it?
can.
I apologize, I thought.
Well, you may have sent it and I didn't get it,
Yeah,
but
I
I
thought they
don't
were.
have it.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
part of the concern here was affordable housing. And so I think the motion implied affordable, more affordable homes, because the one is a pretty big, large number. And, while we've identified some that we like a lot better, doing $1,500 for the cities. Installing this. So I don't know whether that needs to be part of the motion more directly, to have two expensive homes with them. I like them a little bit, not much, so.
I would think. You know, the job, like of Dan, would be to verify that that it is a quality pump.
First and foremost, with the long
Yeah.
warranty that he wants.
And then the developer could choose among those or could recommend others that Dad would type out. So if you wanted to take the more expensive one, you could. If you wanted to take the lower expensive one, you could. So. But we do want to take the interchangeable part out. That's,
To promote competitive pricing. So I think that's understood.
Okay, okay. This is the original. Get that back to Zach. Thank you.
Recommended prices will come down too. What's the replacements?
to promote competitive pricing, yeah, okay. I think Dudley's going to be able to put it up on the screen so everybody can be talking about the same thing. As amended, all those in favor of the motion 2 about the prefabricated grinder sewage pump signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, saying no. Motion 2 passes.
Motion 3, this has to do with bidding of utility work by private contractors, and we talked about this some, and quite honestly, every one of these, in some aspects, have been touched upon, talked about, and so the purpose again is to get it a little more specific and continue to move this forward. So I make the motion for a project to be allowed to privately bid the entire underground electric installation to private contractors who meet state electrical utility contractor licensing requirements. If the private bid comes in lower than CUB's estimate, then CUB would have the option to match the utility contractor's bid. Transformers would remain in the sole responsibility of CUB to provide to the project at no charge as it is currently. CUB would retain the right to pull the actual primary and lug up the transformer. I don't know what half of that means, so you guys out there that do know, I just, you
And
know.
that is an expansion really of the number 8 that we did, that we approved at
Correct.
the last meeting, so. I think everybody's on board with that, especially Greg wanted to make sure that the CUB retain the right to pull the primary.
So that's my
That was
motion.
the only change.
You need a second.
Is there a second? Motion has been made and seconded. Are there any changes that anyone,
The one thing that,
amendments?
it's my motion, but I do want to say, I'm a licensed lawyer. The state of Tennessee has determined that I have the qualifications, educational and otherwise, to be a licensed attorney in the state of Tennessee. You don't have to know that all attorneys aren't necessarily equal, right? You got good ones and you got bad ones. There's attorneys out there, guys, that I wouldn't let walk your dog, okay? but they're state and they're licensed, so that scares me a little bit. So just because you have a license and you've been approved doesn't mean necessarily you're really good at what you do. I want to bring that open for discussion because I would think it would be important for the board, CUB, to be able to say that's not legitimate, or I get he has a license, but I don't find I would want some protection in there.
Would it be acceptable to the development community if CUB maintain a list of qualified?
Or at least approve proposed contract. We've talked about that in previous meetings. It needs to be somebody the CUB thinks is not only qualified, but
How about
They
not
can-
name that a set of requirements that they have done X, or they have been involved in so much, not just a guy who just got his license, they have been in business for maybe an X number of years, and they need to work for so many utility services, so that it does not define an actual group or list of people that doesn't limit a single source provider.
CUB would still retain right to inspect all the work at appropriate times and intervals before clinical results standards. So in some ways, it's self-fulfilling.
And I'd ask Greg to weigh in on that point.
We would continue to recommend that CUB has an option to review. We would be happy to review any that meet what we consider our minimum requirements. And part of that is their track record. They have to bring us references, and we be able to review all of that, how long they've been in business, the type of business, whether or not they're insured, and everything that goes with that. They would have to meet that. So meeting us, and we do have a list, probably about 4 or 5 anyway, that are local, that we use and we can already put out there. If the objective is, which I think would be everyone's first objective, is to maintain the quality that we do. And we are convinced that no one can do that better than we can. But given the fact that if there are price advantages by having, for whatever reason, workload's down and somebody really wants to work and they can give you a bargain basement price, we've got no problem with that as long as they're qualified to the level that we would consider qualified, and we've got a list big enough to show that, there's room in there. We would resist, and which is not what you're suggesting, but we want to retain that right to pull that primary. We're very much
That's in there.
Yeah,
sensitive to
which
that.
We're on board with that.
So I don't see where we can't meet the spirit of what you're saying. If there's others other than this already approved list, give it to us and we'll communicate with them. And if they're rejected, we'll have reasons why,
can you capture it again in an implementing document that'll go in policy? The kinds of things you would look for
Sure.
to accept? a contract?
Absolutely. It shouldn't be a secret. It's not a test you take and you pass, fail, and you don't know why. We're not difficult to get along with, and if they're a licensed electrical utility contractor and they're more than 3 days old, in doing that, and they have experience in the size of the job, and the people that they work with have good things to say about them. I mean, we shouldn't have a problem. And if we do, we'll have good reasons why.
So should I amend that part about having
Do you know, Zach,
licensing requirements? Go ahead.
I suggest, because we haven't seen this either, that with if you want to be specific, we need to spend some time. If if you would like for us to wordsmith this to meet what I believe that is the board's position on this, I can do that. But I would hate to rescan this thing and try to give you a change this word and change that word without me taking a breath to look hard at it. But if, as you said on motion one, give us the option to wordsmith in order to meet the objective of what you want, not that we hold off implementation.
Right.
It's just that we'll make sure we don't get caught on a word or two that you're uncomfortable after review, that's in there and we have to come back and amend it. So essentially, we approve what you've got here and then give us a chance just to make sure that we don't get caught on a word or two.
Fair enough.
Another a point on this is I think most people would be perfectly comfortable with CUB doing all the work, but CUB has limited resources, and the developers have time schedules, and they can't wait on CUB all the time to free up people to go do their work. So that's the need to be able to use other qualified electrical contractors to do this, to keep projects moving on schedule.
I got something I'd like to say about that.
Okay.
We normally put our own in and we maintain our own. If it goes bad, we know how to fix it. You know, we don't know if a certain person put it in, how they put it in, you know, who's going to maintain it and pay for when that goes bad, or if they didn't use good techniques in putting it underground in. It's not just sticking it in the ground, it has to be done right.
See, on all of these, CUB has the right to inspect and approve before anything goes live.
It would have to be inspected pre-burial. I mean, there's a
It's
lot.
different stages. I think that's the way they do
Different
it,
stages,
yeah.
and that would be quite
Yeah.
hard to do, but.
But that's
I
more
know I'd rather
doable.
fix something that I did.
Oh, yeah.
Or something messed up as
But you
opposed
can't,
to
but you
someone
can't,
just because they were running
you can't
out of
expect
time.
to hold up whole residential development projects because CUB is short of
I
manpower.
agree, but you can't expect us to take care of other people's junk either.
Yeah, sometimes you probably
You
will
know.
have to.
I think it's
Okay.
time to call a question.
Is everyone comfortable with where we stand on this and the fact that Mr. Fay is going to wordsmith it to?
Who made the second, Mr. Chairman? I missed that. Steve?
Steve did. All those in favor of approving motion 3 signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, saying no. Motion 3 passes. Moving on to motion 4.
Motion 4, make a motion that there is no electrical infrastructural cost to get to the property line for any residential project, provided that the return on the investment from the project yields a return to pay for said improvement in 10 years or less.
Is there a second? So we can discuss this further.
I'll second to
Okay.
discuss it, but I've got some concerns about that one.
Okay. Motion has been made and seconded. Steve, would you like to lead off with?
I think JD gave us a document from Oak Ridge last time, and somebody else had one from Lenore City that talks about how they calculate the payback on these. And neither one of them are obvious to me how that's done. I would like to have an opportunity or somebody to talk to the people who do that and understand really what that means. I don't know whether it's just witchcraft or whether they have a real good algorithm that they use to calculate that.
Steve, do you recall, do you happen to have that language? Yep, there it is.
Up there. This is, Oak Ridge has, they call it.
Justified investment.
Justified investment.
Just reading that, there are some assumptions they make in how they do that, and they're not obvious.
They do a cost-benefit analysis to figure out the economics of the project, and if it's a justified investment, they say yes, but we don't know how they arrive at that
Right.
They go into,
determination.
they go into some detail in the back about how they do that. You know, but it's obviously, it's based on how quickly the development will be completed, the houses come online, their average usage, you know, all of that stuff, because revenue starts coming is when the house comes
I
online.
think the concept is good, but I think we really ought to understand what we're buying into as far as putting the numbers together.
So you think that this justified investment language from, like, for this, in this case, Oak Ridge, speaks directly to this particular motion? Is it your desire to see this table, this one particular motion tabled until we can?
Not necessarily. I mean, if we pass it tonight, I don't think you could ask us in the morning to do the calculations and tell you whether this new subdivision is gonna meet the criteria or not, because we don't know how to do that yet, I don't think. Maybe Dudley does, maybe this is something you're familiar with.
I think you're treading dangerous ground there. You're gonna be making assumptions on how fast this development's gonna fill up. And we showed you last month, our margin, by the time we pay our operating expense on an electric bill is less than $1.
Well,
you know,
and part of
but-
the payback, when you read the Oak Ridge document, is based on how quickly it fills up. If it doesn't fill up, there's no money comes back.
Yeah,
So I guess the question that I would have, hearing this, is what are the other communities in the area offering? It sounds like Oak Ridge is already offering,
and Lenore City has a
and
similar.
Lenore City is offering this. So you're already, Clinton and under the areas under the utility board are already operating at a disadvantage. So I think it's really important that you step up to the plate and say that you're willing to make those same type of investments if somebody can come in and make a huge investment for this community, to give them an opportunity to bring that back. And that's an investment that will pay off for many years past the original 10 years that you have to pay that charge.
And this is a big item from my talking with developers. Like I say, there's a lot of smaller items, that low-hanging fruit that we've picked off. But this is a big one, because this could be a big upfront cost to a developer, which would, if he had the option to do it here and spend a couple $100,000, or do it down toward on Hardin Valley or in Lenore City for nothing, he's gonna go there, so.
So every day that you wait, every week that you wait, you could be losing a project going to someplace else, because you haven't made a commitment to move forward on this type of incentive that seems to be pretty regularly accepted within the larger kind of Knoxville community.
And I'll say this, I mean, my opinion is, these are not the 10 Commandments, right? So these can be reversed. We can step away from any of these policies if we find that they're detrimental, or if we subsequently find that we moved the bar too close in favor of development so what I'm trying to do is, again, stay within the spirit and the command of our charter or our title by enlarging and extending the system. I mean, at the end of the day, we're charged to provide utilities to the public, and affordable utilities and good utilities. But we're not necessarily charged to become, multimillionaires in the process. We're here to encourage growth and development. And so if we find some of these things are, hey, we went too far, we need to pull back, we're hemorrhaging money, we're bordering on, over the top fiscal policies, because part of that too, and I think Greg ought to be commended, and his staff and you out there, we have run this in a business-like and economic way. So we want to continue to do that. But the two aren't mutually exclusive of one another, right? I want to bring on more ratepayers. I want to bring on more people using electricity. I want to bring on more people flushing commodes.
And going to the schools and, like I say, buying groceries.
Yes, sir.
I have a question, saying that you're gonna do this provided that the return is within 10 years or less, and what's the penalty, or is there one if it don't happen in 10 years?
What I would like to see is that
If you read Oak Ridge's, it's 5 years. And they pay back incrementally over 5 years, and if the return doesn't show up, the money doesn't go back. the developer's pretty much required to fund it up front, and then the money comes back as occupation or houses get built and things come online.
The way it's worded right now, I think it's pretty open-ended.
I mean, I embrace the concept, I just don't think we're ready to say we know exactly how it's gonna work yet.
Greg, what's your opinion on this one?
You know, I'm holding my gunpowder for the one coming up, you know. The idea of infrastructure improvements to essentially private property development, because that infrastructure improvement will enhance that development, which is good, not a bad thing. Then how much does that cost? We'd have to determine that, and whether or not the ratepayers investing in that have a reasonable expectation of that investment coming back to the growth in the system that is going to help support everything else. So all of that sounds great, but the mechanics of getting from here to there, this doesn't address that, and I think Steve may have hit on that. We need a mechanism in place. I would have to understand the mechanism in place to apply this. The concept of investing for a return on investment, I could get behind that, but I would need to understand the mechanism. Maybe look at if this consensus is Oak Ridge has a good procedure, we can get that and look at it and see if it's applicable to us, and then offer that out as a potential once we go through the ABCs of how it's going to be done and how they consider, because they're sure not considering 50 houses as $1 a month, you know, a margin. What basis are they using on that return on investment? And then we can offer that to you as a policy change. That I could do. I wouldn't know what to do with this right here. I understand what you want.
Yeah.
But if you can give me some direction as to where, and you have with Oak Ridge or you have with Lenore City or KUB, whoever you think has a workable policy that addresses infrastructure improvements to a subdivision that you would like to see incorporated here at Cub, then I'll be glad to look at that and try to come up with something workable with a mechanism in place that we can, that's clear and understandable.
What would be the appropriateness if CUB, for just 30,000 foot up, lack of better words, fronts the cost? CUB pays for the infrastructure. CUB puts in the infrastructure. Say that costs CUB $250,000. Well, why couldn't we have the developer put up some sort of bond? I don't know what you'd call it. I don't know if it's a performance bond.
Surety bond.
Some sort of bond that in the event that, like a rarity property, they go under, we're made whole. We have our bond.
Well, I think we need to protect the ratepayer, and that's what you're saying, you know, what mechanism will do that. And again, if you.
Could we use a bond in that, is that something you feel that could be achieved?
I would look at anything that we could put in place other than giving this stuff away, you know. So I would be glad to look at any of that. If you have a program that you want us to emulate, then we can look hard at that too, and go off of their experience with it. And then I can offer you my recommendation based on their program, what potential effects it has to Cub and its ratepayers. But I think I know what you want, and I think I could get there, but I can't get there from here.
So I would just add, conceptually, you can proceed, obviously you can proceed with the concept here that you're doing, but most of what you're talking about is actually implementation contracts that you have in development. That actually you could use to incentivize the developers to continue to move forward at a very quick pace, saying if we meet these guideposts or these stakes in the ground, then you'll continue to get that. If not, then you'll have to make it pay. Those types of contracts are relatively common out in the industry. Conceptually, what you want to get across as quickly as possible is that you're willing to work with developers to reach this point. It doesn't say that doesn't spell out everything that's going to go into a contract with the developer to make that happen.
As a developer, how do you feel about this?
Mr. Chairman, pressure needs to be on the developer. Frankly, if he's not out there taking the risk, or she's not out there taking the risk, I don't think it's on the ratepayers. I mean, I've maintained this the whole time we've been interacting. I don't want the ratepayers to not benefit long term, but obviously short term. We did this already. I mean, how many, $750,000 worth of justification worth of infrastructure that you're rebuilding? There's a justification way to do that internally now. So I think if past motions forward to understand it would be better refined, I think that keeps the pressure on the developers for sure.
Now, I agree with what you said there too, like going down Longmire Road. I mean, there's no ratepayer out there that's funding that. That's coming out of our capital budget. Our long-range planning for, you know, what we see happening in the future and being ready for it.
You've done a wonderful job with that. You've done a wonderful job.
Steve, you got any recommendation then of how we can amend the motion to make it digestible for the board?
Oh. And for developers, I mean, as you're saying, the word has to be there that CUB is going to be a partner in getting this thing done.
I think before you can answer this question, you've got to determine how you're going to determine the return on investment.
Yeah.
Return on investment 10 years, okay, how are we going to determine that? Once you get that calculation, how you can determine that, then you can say, okay, we're willing to do it at 5 or 10 or whatever years, but you've got to have some way of plugging those numbers into a formula to say, yeah, we're going to get a return or we're not.
And I think you'd want to be pretty high level on that, like number of houses coming online and the average revenue coming in per household. You know, I don't think it would be a really tough calculus problem to come up with a reasonable estimate.
If you do that, like Joe said, then the developer can look at that and say, okay, if we can make this happen, we're gonna save this money.
Yeah.
Puts it on the developer, so the developers that are gonna be successful will make it happen, and the ones that don't, are not gonna get the money.
Zach, one thing, again, the Oak Ridge protocol says 5 years rather than 10.
Yeah.
And I don't know what the right answer is, but I think if there's some way we can just put this out as saying conceptually we intend to pursue this and develop the guidelines to make it work, without many details in there yet.
Okay, how about this? I rescind my previous motion
Or just reword this one, you're allowed to do that.
and I make the following motion that CUB implement a cost-benefit analysis as it pertains to the infrastructure costs in dealing with new development. I mean, is that essentially what we're talking about?
The cost-benefit analysis toward paying back to the developer part of his investment based on progress in the subdivision. I mean, just developing a cost-benefit analysis for itself doesn't do anything to
Okay.
anybody.
But if you're gonna pay it back, you're making the developer pay it up front, and they're gonna go somewhere else, but they don't have to pay it up front.
Well, that's
I think the way the analysis, if you determine up front, will this work? And if it will work, say, okay, we'll put the infrastructure in, you develop the subdivision. You can still do like you said, when you put up a bond, but
Elk Ridge, they're only required to put it up if a dramatic expansion of the system is required or if cost recovery is believed to be over a long period.
But I think part of Oak Ridge's algorithm involves actual observation of things taking place in
Yeah.
the development. So the money that goes back to the developer is based on actual performance and not some projected, return on cost. Again, that's the kind of thing I don't understand well yet, just reading this very brief thing from Oak Ridge.
Can we
Whatever-
table that motion until
Well,
we,
I don't know, is tabling, Scott, you've been.
Well, I was just gonna make a suggestion is to make a motion to agree in concept. Motion number 4, instruct Mr. Fay and his staff to look at the utilities in the area and kind of get more information about everybody and what we're talking about, because we can talk all night about, because really don't know unless until Greg really brings it to you and said, this is what they're doing, this is what they're doing, then try to make that competitive.
And is that acceptable? I mean, does that allow you to go ahead with your project?
Well, $35,000 decision that they thought was $100,000 decision at first, so, Greg's nice to get it down to 35. But it says, I make a motion that there is no electric infrastructure cost to get to the property line. Okay. That would mean that CUB's responsibility is to keep up the infrastructure. Otherwise, CUB would be incentivized to let the infrastructure deteriorate and wait on the next developer to come along to put up a bond, so it would be empowered to go ahead and spend the money there. So I thought the intent was, we understood that, but the intent was no electric infrastructure cost to get to the bond. All right, so-
That was the intent.
That's, yep.
And so then the question would be is, if you've only used 5 years to pay out, that's fine, pretty tight payout. And Oak Ridge is designed to be subjective. You have creditworthiness, you have bank participation, you have the smallness of the project or the largeness. All homes is totally different than H goes by far. So, it's a whole different concept. So a lot of this will be subjective.
I think you're gonna have, with every project that comes forward, it's going to be a different set of circumstances, so it is gonna have to be something that is a little bit more fluid when you're talking with the developer and figuring that out, but you have to have the numbers basically make sense, and maybe it's hiring an individual that works with all of the utility companies in the area that can give a rough formula that they use to calculate a return on investment for it.
You could also simply change that to say, make a motion that CUB implements a program that allows for no electric infrastructure costs to get to the property line. Implementing the program, those programs then could be resubmitted to the board for greater detail, or you could even add at the very end that any significant program would have to come to the board for approval. That all gives you a greater say, it allows you to move forward with this right now, and it also gives the CUB managers, the leeway to actually implement the program as they see this the best to suit.
That actually sounded pretty good to me, did it?
Yeah, I wish, do we have it on tape?
So,
I mean, because I think that sums it up. I mean, Vicky, I think, in essence, that would allow us to go ahead and take a motion and take action, but the real effect of that's tabling it to further flesh it out. I'd like to, I think the intent for me would be the board sort of make a policy statement, understanding that the details are gonna have to be fleshed out. And the details will probably have to be brought back before the board to be voted on again for, yes, that's what we want, no, that's not what we want.
I can live with that, but I sure do want to make sure that CUB gets the opportunity to write this out, flesh it out, whatever we're gonna call it. That is not our expertise, not
I
anybody's,
agree.
not any of our 5. But we need to lean on them to do that, and give them the support and the okay to go ahead and do that with the input from people that are out there in the field. We've always, not every one of us have said we're in support of helping our city grow and supporting developers, but, ratepayers are our responsibility too, so we've got to balance this up here. So Greg needs to flesh this out, and we need to not make it so tight that he can't.
Is
my
the
opinion.
intent of the board to emulate what Oak Ridge is doing? Because that should be pretty cut and dry. Or is the intent of the board to do something that no one else is doing? And then we would have to design something fresh. You know, because I'm ready to jump out there, because this is a board level and fairly within your bailiwick, because it deals with money and it deals with using ratepayers' money. And your policies are designed and put in place because I think your fiduciary responsibility is to the ratepayer. You know, so you're now putting policies using their money in play, and you want to, with all of the information, make an informed choice in order to best serve the interest of the ratepayer. And if you believe that providing opportunities for being creative with infrastructure to meet the needs of new development is in the best interests of the ratepayer, and you have found that there is a program that is already in play that you've referenced several times, and can that be adapted to make work at Cub? I can work on that quickly and bring it back to you and say, here's how I believe that this would work for us. But anything different than that, then I think that's going to require a little bit more to try to understand how we can get what you want and get it into a policy that we can implement across the 6 counties that we serve, because all of those will have that opportunity.
I think that viewpoint is just a little bit restrictive, because it's not just the ratepayers that we support. We're supporting Clinton and the surrounding area, and sometimes the best thing for the ratepayer would probably be to do nothing, to keep everything the same as it is and hold down cost. Whereas the best thing for Clinton, for Anderson County, or for the 6 counties, might be to do something that brings a lot of new investment in. So, yes.
In that motion there, it says that there won't be any electric infrastructure cost to get to the property line for any residential project. I've heard a lot from the developers, but is this gonna also apply to John Q. Public, who builds his house out here and needs a 2-line extension?
I think that's where the cost-benefit analysis comes in, that says
Are
that
you gonna
one house.
give him that ability to have a cost analysis benefit as well? Because then you're gonna have some people jumping up and down right here.
I understand, that's why I'm saying we need to understand what this means to develop this.
That right there says for any residential project.
And we're wordsmithing that right now, because the intent is for larger development projects.
You're just wanting to benefit the developers, but not John Q. Public chooses to build in Anderson County.
Anybody to create a payback under that statement?
He's paying his rates.
Well, no, it's a lot more than just paying the rate. And one house, I can almost tell you, won't pay back for the project.
Over a period of 10 years. Maybe we need to look at that. Do we really know that? You're not looking out for John Q. Public if you're looking out for the developers only. This needs to be across the board, and fair is fair.
Well, again, part of the algorithm I think Oak Ridge uses takes into account whether it's one house or 50 houses, and the calculation of payback and return on investment is well driven by a lot of houses
But a
versus
single
one.
pole line extension for 2 poles is not gonna cost what the infrastructure would be to have to rebuild 0.6 of a mile of 795 in order to provide service to that subdivision, that 50-house subdivision. There's a great differential in cost there.
Okay, you're getting beyond my ability to calculate 3 plus 3 here, but 2 poles may be something Greg would consider. I don't think that's a policy decision for the board.
Well, then that wording really needs to be looked at.
I think everybody agrees with that the wording needs to be looked at. You had if you could kind of
All right,
restate
so-
what you said.
I make a motion to direct our general manager to implement the spirit of motion 4 in further detail. That's my motion.
Motion has been made and seconded. Motion 4 as amended. All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Heck.
Aye.
Opposed, no.
Greg, does that make sense?
Yes,
I mean,
because.
has that just cut to the exactly?
Because what was said is dead on, spot on, in my opinion, and what the intent up here is dead on and spot on. I can marry those two things together, I believe, because the first thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go to Oak Ridge and see what it is that's working for them, because they are also like-minded in the protections.
Perfect. Motion 5. 2 more to go here. All right. I make the motion that the residential subdivisions will be required to pay the total cost of providing electric utility service to all the lots inside the project's boundary. CUB will continue to furnish the transformers at no charge. The project will be required to make a single lump sum payment of the estimated amount in full prior to commencement of construction for CUB, or pay as required to the selected low bid contractor. However, the amount of this payment will be subject to a prorated refundable amount by CUB on a per lot basis. To be classified eligible for refund, the lots shall have a permanent service and be an occupied dwelling. Said refundable amount shall be requested annually on the anniversary month, and initial payment shall be paid by CUB with no interest in return within 30 days of the anniversary. This reimbursement will be based on the following refund schedule. Years 1 through 3, total refund per lot meeting the listed criteria, $500. Years 4 through 5, total refund per lot meeting the listed criteria, $400. Thereafter, no refunds will be paid. This policy is made in order to better balance the $2,500 for individuals that is currently allowed under the policy. The policy shall be reviewed by the board every 2 years.
I'll second that motion. Floor is open for comments. Greg, I think,
I'm sorry.
I was gonna say, that's a lot to digest on a front read, but I can tell you this, because this is a rebate program, and I have looked hard at Lenore City, because that's also the one that's been front and center, and I even have a presentation that will mimic what Lenore City has done. That I'm familiar with. This I'm not, so I can't really give you a whole lot. If you're looking for a rebate program, I have looked hard, and I can, and essentially have got one worked out that will do that. I don't know how it marries up to this right here.
Mr. Chairman, I had a question about, earlier in one of the resolutions, there was a 20 lot threshold. I didn't see that in here, and I thought maybe that might ought to be discussed. Because obviously you don't want to do this for 2 lots or 3 lots or something that's relatively small.
yeah, the tap fee motion had the 20 lot.
Yeah, right.
So, and my understanding is, these motions are, quite frankly, to the gentleman's concern, and it's rightfully so, but these motions are looking at larger developments. I'm sure Ison got a deal I didn't get. They're Ison. I'm Zach Fair, live at 601 Eagle Bend, right? Apples, oranges. So I amend the motion to include
So
20.
that residential
20 lots.
subdivisions of 20 lots
Yeah.
or larger, okay.
And I'm leaning towards the general manager's comments, I mean, I think that's fine. I mean, I think the spirit again is, let's see about doing something about rebates. And and I'm looking for discussion and input, how reasonable the board thinks this is. This is a starting point for discussion for me.
I have that ready now, if you would like to look at it, because that I'm familiar with, and again, it emulates what Lenore City does. And I think that is a very workable and a program that I could support.
Familiar with that, JD, or
You're,
Joe or anybody?
wait a minute.
Yes.
Yeah, thank you.
I have no clue.
Well, it's pretty much Lenore City's program is what it is.
Is Lenore City program something that you all could live with? I don't know.
I think Lenore City is a similar option, but you have to tie all things together. And one of the key things is maybe even going back to the last point, don't limit yourself to Oak Ridge. Go out into the community, see what's working, pull what's working the best from everybody. Don't copy somebody else's idea. Get what will really promote it.
If we did that, we would stay the same. If we looked at what the most folks were doing, we would stay the same. So I don't know that that's really where you'd want to go. But if the board's desire is to address a rebate program, there is one that has been working, does work, and that really was the first one brought to our attention. So I have that in play, if that's something the board's interested in, or just let me know what you want.
Mr. Chairman, actually, we've got several developers, investors here. It would be good to review that. If he's worked on this.
Okay.
It's a really excellent idea.
I move we table this motion in the spirit of allowing the board as well as the developers to digest because we may have the answer right here already, and everybody's ready to agree upon it. So I ask that we table this motion till next meeting. This particular motion 5 be tabled to the next meeting.
Is there a second to that?
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign, okay.
'Cause I think
Motion
that
5
makes-
will be covered in the next meeting, and Greg,
I'll have
you
a
will have a
presentation.
presentation
Yes, sir.
ready to go.
All right, last motion, guys. So hang with me. State minimum electrical code requirements. I make the motion that CB base all its electrical policies on state minimum requirements. Any additional requirements above state minimums require board approval subject to reasonable cost-benefit analysis. This will prompt development and stop frivolous spending that causes miscommunication, misallocation of resources, hinders development, creates excess costs.
That is similar to a motion that we passed
Correct.
in the previous workshop follow-up meeting, so. Is there a second to that motion? Since it's already been pretty much passed before. Shouldn't be,
Well, discussion after the second? I'll second it so we can have discussion.
okay, motion's been made and seconded.
After a reasonable cost-benefit analysis, I know one of Greg's primary concerns in some cases is not necessarily cost, but safety.
Yes, sir.
So there ought to be something maybe more than just cost-benefit.
I have a phrase that I can give you, if you'd like for me to share that.
Yes, sir.
That the owner, developer, contractor their work efforts meeting the requirements of the latest edition of applicable National Electric Safety Code and National Electric Code and all other federal, state, and local codes, ordinances, and regulations that are acceptable unless more restrictive requirements are justified by CUB. So they need to meet all the applicable National Electric Safety Code, National Electric Code, and any other federal, state, or local ordinance that are out there, and anything in addition to that, we need to justify.
I amend my motion to adopt General Manager Fay's language. Because that to me is the spirit of what I'm trying to accomplish there. I think what
It's not minimums, essentially, because the National Electric Code and National Electric Safety Code, you know,
absolute safety comes,
That's right.
safety of our people is paramount. to
well, that's
everything
where I
we
was
do.
saving all my powder, and I'm sorry that you caved so easy on me.
So that the motion is amended there to,
Yeah, gee.
All those in favor of the motion number 6 as amended, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Okay,
Mr. Fay, you're gonna, you have wording for motion 5 pretty much prepared.
Yes, ma'am.
Will we have access to that before the next meeting?
I'll give it to you. I've got it on I'll put it on a PowerPoint. Can you work with that?
Yes, sir,
All
thank you.
right.
next item,
Before we go on, I have a question.
oh, okay.
I want to know how Dr. Harrell and I did not receive these proposed motions before this meeting. You asked us to come in.
I
sent them
haven't
out.
received an email from
I
Zach
checked and I
since
have not got it. But
Well,
Zach, it's
November.
not you. It's the chairman.
No, it's me.
That's
I-
responsible for this.
I got it from a city council meeting. I mean,
It's pretty obvious that everybody knows what's going on except us.
And the fact that the 2 females on this board did not receive the proposed motions and we were expected to discuss it and vote on it is unethical. And I go on record as saying that, and I want to know why. I don't get city council information, but if I'm asked as a board member to vote on something, Mr. Chairman, with all due respect, I expect it before the meeting like the 3 males did.
well, I didn't send anything to the 3 males. I
And
didn't.
how did the 3 males end up?
Ask
with
the
it?
3 males. I mean, I told you where I got
As
it.
chair, it's your responsibility to make sure that everyone receives the information. It was not in the supplemental information that was in the agenda for tonight's meeting.
We're voting on it. I expect to get it with our board packet, and that's my expectation.
And that's a fair one, and I send you everything in advance.
I know,
That
but we didn't get that.
and you didn't get that, and
look, I thought I'd sent a reply all to, I mean,
No, sir, I didn't get it.
Greg says he didn't get it, and I believe I sent that to Greg, and so there's certainly not any subterfuge. But quite frankly, to be honest, I didn't have to send it to anybody. I mean, if I want to make a motion as this board, I can make a motion right now to vote, and you can say no, but I can promise you there was nothing on my part to deceive or to slant or to do anything. I mean, because matter of fact, the way I recall the last meeting, there was an issue about we haven't seen stuff, and that's why I intentionally believed I thought I sent it out. So if I did not or it didn't get sent, that wasn't my intent. My intent was to have robust discussion on these issues and to provide everyone advance notice because of that exact same thing that happened in the previous meeting where you felt that, you know, there was a list and it wasn't sent out. I certainly did not intend that.
I don't think you did, but it happened. And I do hold the chair responsible for getting all information that we're going to vote on to every single member.
well, and I can't do that because, for instance, right now, if somebody wants to make motion number 7, they can't. And it's like Zach says.
Well,
if
I
it-
would agree with that, except 3 of you walked in with this paper and 2 of us did not. I'm asking for the exact equal treatment is what I'm asking.
Which, and I understand,
Yeah.
if somebody has something, if I've sent something to somebody, I need to send it to everybody.
Correct.
And that was what I thought I did.
Well, like I said, Zach, it's not, I don't hold you
Well, I mean,
responsible.
I hold myself to that, to that, you know, because again, it's just not in my nature, because it's not gonna be beneficial to getting things done if you feel that it's, you know, the trial by ambush. That's not the purpose here, at all. I respect you too much, and I personally and professionally. And I would never, and you too, Penny, I'm not leaving you out. And so I apologize because And I understand it's actually his fault, but
It is, and I'm holding him
I
responsible,
get it,
not,
but I want to apologize.
well,
So,
apology
I
accepted,
didn't
but-
get an email from Zach either, but
well,
if
3 people walked in with this
I'll-
paper
I
and 3,
will
2
forward
did
all
not.
of Zach's emails to you in the future. Are there any other motions that anyone would like to make on the board in relation to the workshop items?
I'm not going to do number 7.
We are,
There is no seven.
You
I
have
think you're
7.
talking about,
yeah, that was case number 1 failed down there. Number 1 passed.
They don't even seem related to me. They don't even seem related to me.
Well, it starts off by saying in case number 1 fails.
there's no other motion. I'm not making any other motion.
Very good. Any other motions from any other board member? If not, we have a situation where one of the developers would like to appeal a decision that's been made by CUB indicating that no Keene pumps will be acceptable. So the way we'll do this, we'll let the developer say whatever he needs to say about what he wants to do with the Keene pumps or consider doing, and then we will let CUB give their side of why they take the position that they take. So, Joe?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. You know, the journey's been long and hard about this pump question. And we fight all the time to keep costs low, and so we can pass along costs that are low of these homeowners. And so we can attract builders to do it. So we're not saying a Keene pump is the perfect pump, but we've been in touch with Mr. Keene in Ohio. We have been to his plant. He has personally toured us for a full day. He sent repeatedly pumps down here and also all sorts of information. JD has interacted with him 20 times. They've been on the phone reviewing specs, so we feel very comfortable that the Keene pump is far exceeds that he wanted. Roughly $1,500 cheaper installed in the ground. It will be passed along within the lot savings. So, our goal was to ask CUB to consider that as an alternative. And Dan was nice enough to consider it. And Anderson County. Wouldn't it be nice if Anderson County and CUB could work together on this, where they have overlapping systems and an interchange with the E1 pump? Well, it's not been simple, but we were able to meet with Anderson County Water Authority for 3 hours or so, and with their pump authorities that they brought in, and they're very comfortable with this. They've not recommended it yet. I think they're going to recommend it for their board to approve. But in any event, as a developed subdivision, we would like to invite Cub, if they would like to participate in the guinea pig approach. We've used Keene pumps before and like them a lot in our industrial projects. So what we'd like to do is install the Keenes as a homeowners association and let that homeowners association service their own pumps. There's a contracting group that's authorized by the state to do that. So we just let them run this for a couple of years and just prove to you that the new centrifugal pump will work better. Now, you may have alternate pumps, and we would like to look at those, Dan, both of those, as long as they're, can save and got a good warranty. But we'd like to just go on and do that. But we'd like to have, if the CB would like to do that, we'd like to participate. I know Anderson County is going to do that because they've already dropped one in for a trial that year and getting ready to drop another one in for a trial. So they're on it. So decide what you all want to do. If you want to go a different direction, it's fine. But we'd love to participate in this guinea pig. There's no exposure. I would like for the offer correct, that, I don't know how Anderson County will rule, because the pump question keeps rolling back. Okay, so, but we've got to move ahead. This is, it's been a lot of delays. And so, what we'd like to do is just ask CB, as I've indicated before, or as I understand they've indicated, that they will let us go into Miller Road, we'll run all the lines, do all the work, put all the pumps in, get everything up there, and then put a meter, put your normal meter up there, and then whatever the sewage charge is, gallonage, then we would pay. And I understand you have two rates for Anderson County, the lower and the higher rate, that I understand you're comfortable with.
Really, what you're asking for, Joe, is that, and we would, Anderson County Water Authority be our customer, but, and we've already indicated that we would be happy to take their, what they will be our customer, which will be coming from your subdivision, but that we can handle at Miller Road. So it wouldn't be working with the homeowners or anything else. It would be Anderson County Water Authority, and we have an agreement with them on treating their sewer in bulk.
You have a double rate, the lower rate and the higher rate. And they're hyper concerned about the higher rate. And that also makes us.
Well, no, it's a consistent rate. We've got a rate, no, sir, it's where they bring it to our wastewater treatment plant. If they bring it to our wastewater treatment plant and we don't have to, there's no transmission associated with that, then we'll give them, they have a lower rate there. But it's out throughout the system, it's a consistent rate.
So you would charge them if they use that at the higher rate?
We would charge, if we have to transmit it, we would charge them at the same rate we charge everywhere else where they come into us. If anything that comes to us at the wastewater treatment plant, we don't have lift stations to get there, then we give them a discount because they're absorbing all of that cost, that transmission cost, and it comes to our wastewater treatment plant.
We're not hand begging. What we're saying is Anderson County doesn't know they're going to approve these pumps for sure, or any pumps, you know, this thing goes on and on and on. So we've said as a homeowners association, we'll just put them in and we'll contract with somebody other than Anderson County. If they don't approve, to just service them ourselves, and then we do this. And then we'll just get to Miller Road. But the question is what is the rate? And so you and I talked about the constant flow there being such that it would be desirable. Otherwise, we're gonna spend $120,000 to run by Miller Road, go all the way up 61, turn it to the interstate, and go down to Buffalo Road. Spend $120,000 running pipes by pipes for no reason. So that's why developments aren't done, is nobody's communicating, so we're just trying to get some communication. So if we can get some reasonable rate to pump in, then we would do that. And I don't know for sure Anderson County will obligate themselves to do that, because they may force us to go to Buffalo Road. So then we're back to not starting. So I'm just trying to work this out such that what the rate per gallon would be. And so they seem to think that they have a higher rate than a lower rate.
There's a rate that is right there at the wastewater treatment plant, and then there is every other, wherever else that comes in, there's a different rate.
Okay, so if the homeowners association taps Miller Road,
We would only
Don't
tap
fool with them.
ACWA. ACWA would have to tap into us.
okay, so you won't work with any individual.
We work with utilities for that kind of force main, that's right.
Okay, so it has to be a utility.
You know, if everyone brought it to a gravity, you know, a gravity system would be different. You know, I mean, get to a man, you know, something like that, then we would charge, you know, the individual customers. So we would either charge the individual customers a rate if they got gravity to a manhole, or we would charge ACWA a bulk rate if they brought it into Miller Road at one time. So it just depends on we would work with all of your customers if it brought gravity to where it's gravity to us, even though it's low pressure to get to that, wherever that gravity, where they empty into us. But then it would be individuals.
So you see how, with clarity, this would be a little bit of a problem here. So we're not sure whether Anderson County will approve any pumps, or whether you all will approve any pumps, okay? So we have to get through that are competitively priced. All right, but we gotta put those in, and then Anderson County wants to be paid, they want to be paid to collect higher prices on the sewage, so they can make money in between, or they're gonna force us to go to Buffalo Road.
But be clear, Joe, that's not our service area. So that's why and unless Anderson County says that we can go in and we can charge sewer individually, we can't do that. That's their service area. And that's why when I told you, would we accept at Buffalo Road, Anderson County, that's when I said we would. And the reason we would is because they would be collecting for their service area.
Yeah, well, so, one more time, let me try to get a little more clarity out of this. Already waived the sewer fees, tap fees. That's done, all right? So if reasonable price pumps were accepted, CUV could take that over if the city annexed.
Well, the tap fees that you're talking about for your subdivision, because they made a policy for developers. Now, if you're talking specifically about your development, those tap fees are not ours, they're Anderson County's.
Well, they've waived them.
Well, then you don't have any problem at all, with us, because it wouldn't affect what we're doing here, because that subdivision for tap fees for water and sewer, it's all in Anderson County. So the policy that put in effect here doesn't touch you at all for tap fees, because we don't have any. Because it's ACWA's. And if they've already waived them, well, you're good to go.
Yeah, well, so that makes us, if they waive them, that makes us use the Buffalo Road facility. $120,000 to run it down Buffalo Road instead of using Miller Road.
Well, we won't charge you a tap fee if Anderson County puts it into at Miller Road. We're out of tap fees for you.
Okay, so I know this sounds silly, but it's the homeowner that's gonna be paying a surcharge. I don't care. I'm just trying to work this out in advance between utilities, because it gets to be tough. So, but the homeowner will be charged either $8 a month or $28 a month, on and on and on and on. And so clearly it's better if CUB has it, especially if you waive the tap fee. And so, but we have to get reasonable pumps, so that's what we're hoping to get the pump problem solved also. So you would take it, would CUB take it if the city annexed it with no tap fees?
That's the policy.
That's the policy.
That's the policy, absolutely.
Okay, so all we need to do is get you an agreeable pump that's also paid.
I would assume. So,
You're the guy.
And you would be looking at the same tap pump for the whole development, right?
Yeah, we would be buying.
It's like Dan had said before, yeah.
Dan's the same type pump Dan recommended, and I'm not saying we wouldn't use that brand. I just want to make sure the warranty's good. And then put them all in and give you 5 replacement pumps that you can just run forever. Free for your stock. And that way, when we sell the lot to the builder, it comes with a pump, it comes with a water tap, paid, and they're ready to go. That will lower the hurdle for builders to come here dramatically. So,
Or Greg and Dan, are you all clear on what the situation is?
Not at all.
Well,
No,
good,
I
'cause
mean,
I'm still fuzzy.
the ask, because there's several asks and there's several assumptions. The deal with tap fees now that affect water and sewer, we've got that, as far as I know, squared away. But that's for those in the city. Joe's proposed subdivision is outside of the city, so that won't be considered unless he brings it in the city. Now, if he brings it in the city, he won't have to pay his tap fees, and he can get that to Miller Road, and we'll take it, you see. If he goes, and if it stays in the county, then our customer will be ACWA, because we'll be glad to take that at Miller Road, but he'll have to deal with their tap fees or whatever. If it's not us, we don't care if you put a pump in there from Lowe's, it's fine with me. But if it is ours, then we're gonna have to have a pump. We are gonna recommend a pump, which we already know, the E1s, and these other two that will meet but I've said all I'm gonna say, unless you want me to say more. I've sent you all, I think you need I cannot say any more than what I've already sent you on where we are on the Keene pump. That's just, and we have no experience with that, and it may be the best thing since sliced bread, but the people that we have called, and our consultant, has already given you their opinion on that.
I think JD is talking about a different Keene pump than what you were talking about in what you gave.
Sir, I've never seen that, sir.
You've never seen what?
Why you won't use the pump?
I gave that to my board, and I'm assuming you're getting that in your hand right now. Yeah.
It's a pretty good analysis. There's some issues that I think are no never minds in that, but there are some that are significant issues that need to be considered.
I think you guys need to be open when we have one being tested, at least to see it and see what's going on with it, because they actually pulled a new one out that they've had to fix, what, you said 6 times already? And so you have one in your area and you all have not been willing to even have that discussion with us.
Well, we've been discussing that for quite some time, which is,
Sir, I've never seen this, and I was the one that actually brought it to you. Don't you think it would have been fair, before we got to this meeting, to have Keene Low Pressure?
what do you think is fair, JD? That we could have a long discussion about what is fair and how all this going down is fair. I am responsible to my board, and you have more than once went ahead and hijacked them, in order to meet whatever your agenda is. So no, I don't think that's unfair that I provide information to my board. No.
Let me comment on that,
Yes.
because I don't necessarily agree. I think it is CUB's responsibility to deal directly with the customers before they go to the board, with paper, on issues of this nature. That's what I would have done in my previous business in the nuclear.
I agree.
And for them to go directly to the board with the paper before customers seen that is unacceptable, and that's the type of thing that is sending a bad message to developers out there. This is the type of thing that needs to be worked out directly with the individual customers. There's no reason that shouldn't be in the customer's hand, the developer's hand, to work out the individual details before this is in your hands as a board of directors. Guaranteed.
I don't disagree with that at all, because that's the way we prefer it, and it's the way it should be. I'm the interface between the vendors and the customers and my board. But that's not the way this went down, and I don't know how much you're aware of that, but that, I was bypassed like somebody passing a one-stop town, and they went directly to my board. So
We went to you in May. Okay, last May. We made a phone call to you. You literally would not even respond to an email, Greg. So don't say that we have not been coming to you about this.
I'm
all of a
sorry,
sudden.
Nikki, I have no recollection of that whatsoever.
I will find the email because it's literally, that's the issue.
Well, where do we stand right now? Let's kind of bring this to some point that we can.
I hope it's simple, okay? If CUB will, have a cost-effective pump, it doesn't have to be Keene, we're not waving their flag, we just know it works. We don't know whether these others are cost-effective or not, whether it's any certain. And if there's not any, we've already decided that there's no tap fee, sewer tap fee. CUB can't furnish water because they don't have water there, so it's gotta be Anderson County. So that would mean that we should be using Miller Road, right?
To me, that's the most sensible place to bring wastewater, because we're sitting right there.
All CUB, all all he has to do, he and Dan, have to agree on a pump that we can find cost effective, that we know will be serviceable long-term, and then we'll just ask the city to annex us. But we need clarity, and this would give us clarity.
And I'm hearing that Greg and Dan are open to other pumps than the E1.
Sure.
And,
But you have our opinion on the Keene pump.
well, I don't know if it's all Keene pumps because, my understanding from just internet basically is that the one that, and the write-up that you had, there are problems with the one that's compatible, interchangeable with the E1. But they have other centrifugal that are commercial quality that seem to be of a higher quality and would probably meet your standards for a enclosed, everybody uses it development. So I wouldn't say you have to use Keene pumps or you can't use Keene pumps. I think the way it was said is if
We're not married to King Pump, we're married to a value
Yeah.
pump that'll do a much better job than
Okay.
stop being the Cadillac. We can afford these Cadillacs and Mercedes.
Okay.
Some of them are-
So I think y'all are close enough on that to say we can, yeah.
When you're done, I want to ask a couple questions to clarify.
I'm done already.
Hypothetically,
Yes, sir?
if Joe gets approval from Anderson County to use a Keene pump or a XYZ pump,
Yes, sir?
he decides that's a reasonable pump, installs it, and he gets a couple of years' worth of experience, we finally annex that subdivision. So CUB will be forced to accept whatever
No,
pumps.
no, sir. We would recommend that we didn't take the sewer in that subdivision, because
That's
that,
where I wanted to
that's where we would be at. And then you all would do whatever you wanted to do, because we're not fighting against what we're doing. We know what is quality. We know that when we send our guys out, it's so much easier to pull out and out. The maintenance on it's good. We know where we can get our parts. We have got 15 years of experience with a quality pump that we still are very, very happy with. We understand that any developer wants to hold the cost down, and we just don't want to increase our maintenance expense, irrespective of what the warranty is. If your refrigerator goes out and it's warranted, don't feel that happy. You just don't want it to go out, because then your food, you got to do some of it, you got to send it off. Just because it's warranted doesn't mean that it is either superior or that it's going to provide you the quality over time.
I understand. I just want to make sure that point was understood, because I wasn't sure whether we could say no to the annexation or the sewer, but it
Well, you
sounds
sure
like you
could,
can. Okay.
and again, the compatibility with our system and what we do, it would be, we think we would be buying in, and not in a desirable place, and we would make that point to you all, and then you can then choose whether that is valid enough to say, well, let's just keep it like it is. We'll be getting revenue from the sewer because we're going to treat it. So it's not like we're going to have a less of a revenue stream. What we will then require is we won't have the additional maintenance would be what we think would be associated with that.
And one other point for my clarification, I guess. If that subdivision gets annexed with a pump that we will accept, and they start dumping sewerage into Middle Road as part of the city, is there any charge for that other than just a normal sewer charge to a resident?
No. Once they fall under our umbrella, then they're going to get our rates also.
Okay.
That's correct.
Greg, how do you bill that? If Anderson County's got the water, you've got a billing system where.
Yes, sir.
you sewer directly.
That's, well, we share reads, but on both ways, because we've got water where they've got sewer, and we have sewer where they have water.
Okay.
So we share the read because everything's tied on the water meter.
And are those rates, exchange rates, based on both of you kind of breaking even? That there's no, you
No.
don't make money off them, they don't make money off you?
Well, we actually bill for them because they don't have the mechanism to bill, and they pay us to do that. But they charge their water rates and they charge their sewer rates as we do.
So Greg, so right now, to be honest, we don't care what he puts out there because it's not our.
It's not
problem.
us.
So he can put in whatever he wants to put in.
Yes, sir.
And
Absolutely.
then we can end up annexing that property.
Yep, that's right.
And CUB decide, well, we're gonna serve you, well, we're not gonna serve this particular, the sewer, the water, what.
Yes, sir. That's right. We don't have water.
Cherry pick. So there's nothing stopping
Nothing.
Joe from doing what he wants to do, so we're,
That's right.
I don't know, what are we talking about?
I know it sounds,
For months.
The big decision for Joe, if they decide not to accept those pumps into the city, a big impact eventually.
You realize how hard it's been to get Anderson County to look at this one? Or any problem.
Why do they not want to look at it?
They won't look at anything. They're a utility. And so, I mean, I'm not talking bad about them. They were sitting here and saying the same thing, but it's just hard to do. Well, we have been able to get them to do that, and they've been very receptive only in the last 3 days. And so we've got it under trial right now, and we expect by next Tuesday that they will be fine with this. And who knows? You may want the King pump after 2 years of service. You may see it, it's a wonderful thing. But we'll just go ahead with you processing the sewer and then furnishing the water.
okay. Is everybody all right with that?
Yeah. It works. It would just be a lot easier if we could all agree on the pump. But,
And in
we don't
2
have to
years'
have
time,
that.
we may
Yeah.
agree on the pump.
If you have good success
Yeah,
in 2 or 3
please
years,
don't.
then I'm
Yeah,
sure.
it's not like we've closed the door to anything, folks. It's just our recommendation based on what we know today.
Pass those down to Greg and
Did,
Steve.
this question is to Mr. King, did the King pump that you're wanting to use, because what I was,
Pass that to Peggy.
what I was picking up, are we talking about the exact same thing? What was denied and what you're planning to use, is it?
That is the short answer.
Okay. Well, can we not resubmit? And I'm sure these fine gentlemen to my left and to my right will give full faith and credit to, and a fair deal with reviewing that. And I think that's what we can decide, I mean,
Yeah, that sounds good.
right? I think that's fair. Greg, you think it sounds digestible?
Do you know, Zach, I'm sitting here and I ignored everything you said because I just was looking at this piece of paper that just got handed to me. So I'm just going to go with you and say yes, okay? I'm sorry.
Okay, we will leave that subject. The next subject on our list is a comprehensive pay plan for CUB. And what I passed out to them is the city of Clinton has a comprehensive pay plan that has 15 salary grades. Each salary grade has a minimum, midpoint, and maximum salary associated with it. And each job within the city of Clinton is assigned to one of those pay grades. What I'm proposing, or what I will be proposing here shortly, is that CUB develop the same thing, that we have a structured, comprehensive pay plan, goes from entry level to general manager level, and for each of those pay grades, there is a minimum salary, a midpoint salary, and a maximum salary. And this would be part of the personnel policy, it would be part of our budgeting, and it would give a much more business-like, structured approach to personnel management. A part of this that we've talked about and we've been talking about this for years, incidentally, would be that no employee would be hurt if some employee job classification went into a particular job grade, and their current salary was higher than the maximum for that pay grade, they would keep their current salary. They would be grandfathered in at their current salary. So that's the essence, and it's a pretty simple proposal, really. It's just that we put structure around the personnel payroll system, and basically we copy what the city of Clinton is doing and has been doing. So technically, and once again, I'll have to make a motion. If it's seconded, then we can discuss it however we want to. But my motion would be that CUB develop and adopt a comprehensive pay plan similar to that used by the city of Clinton. Like theirs, our plan would have written classifications of all pay grades from entry level to the top manager with minimum, median, and maximum pay for each grade. All job titles would be assigned to a specific pay grade level. The salaries within each grade would be developed primarily from salary surveys that we recently received. And again, the rider on that was that no employee would be hurt by this. If anybody's current salary was higher than where they got slotted in, they would keep their current salary rather than going to the top of that salary grade. So that's.
Chairman, could I ask a question?
Sure. Well, wait, let's get, is there a second to the motion?
I'll second.
Okay, motion's been made and seconded. Yes, Mr. Fay.
Will this supplant what we already have in place?
Yes.
But you don't know what we have in place?
I don't know all of it, no. And,
I'm sorry. Share with me what you know, and then I'll fill you in on the rest.
well,
Can I make a comment?
yeah.
Last time, we established that general manager has the authority and has the legal right to set compensation. I don't mind setting a left and right lateral limit for positions. They do that in the military. I was a captain. I was only going to make what I was going to make. I get that. But the more time I had in grade, I could make more money. But that needs to be set by Greg, not by the board.
Right.
I have that.
And then I also think that this is fine. A roadmap is great, and having some structure is great, but I would also personally like to allow Greg the ability to deviate if circumstances justified it. And and obviously the board would see it, and we would, we'd say so and such is outside the range. Why?
Right.
And if the general manager, does a good job of justifying why that individual is outside that range, we have fulfilled our fiduciary duties that we owe to the ratepayer. I don't have a problem with that. But and I get
But that would be a part of the normal budgeting process.
Yes.
Looking, this is the raises that I want to give, and this is what they put this person at, and then that's where we would have that conversation. And right now, we don't see that at all. I haven't seen that in all the years I've been on the board. The only time I know what, especially higher management makes, is like when we go to the budget for next year, I will see what they made last year. And that's the only insight I have.
I have had, and I have shared with the board, since I became manager, we have evaluations that we do a lot. Certainly by every time you get a pay increase. We have got limits, which everyone knows, and all of the classifications, what their entry is, what they get at 3 months, what they get at 6 months, what they get at a year and 18 months, and then steps after that to determine how long does it take for you to be fully invested in your job position. So how long does a cashier take before we consider that they should have full knowledge of what they do is different than what we have a professional engineer. Dudley, could you bring up with all of your talents a copy of what that looks like, should be not that, not that, not that, not that. A pay stub, and and I think it may be in one of these that you have to go up a little bit.
Is that where you want?
Well, that is a copy, that's 4 pages, so you could roll through that for the board.
Okay.
You all are familiar with seeing this. That's 4 pages, which is what we do, and that's part of the evaluation process. And then you get to this next. This is a customer service specialist. You know, the entry level for that, and if you can see that, you're better than I. I mean, that starts with about $14.45 coming in. What we do in 3 months, 6 months, 9, 12, 18, 24, 30, we've got a process, because at the end of 60 months, 5 years, that person should be fully engaged in their skill set for customer service. And then, depending on the type and what they do, there's a step after that. But that's the beginning, and that is the top out, including that bottom step. But they're pretty much fully invested within 60 months. Go to another one, Dudley.
Go to the Director of Engineering.
We don't have one of those.
Right.
And I'm sorry, I don't know your point, because the point I'm making is what you're asking for, we already have it, and that's why I asked you.
You have it for certain part of the company. You don't have it for all of the company.
I do, Charles. I've got it for everyone here.
Well, okay, then let's see what Ernie Bowles was for last year.
Well, I don't have that because he's no longer employed here.
I know,
And-
that's why I
and-
wanted to pick him, because it's somebody that, we wouldn't be talking about.
But
he has there's a minimum for that job and a midpoint and a maximum? No.
There is one for that position. When that position is hired, I will have an entry level, and these are the bookends, because depending on their qualifications, they can start at any point on that line.
Right.
Do you see? But I've got a bookend for every employee here.
Well, what is the bookend then for the Director of Engineering?
Because that position is vacant, and I have been running wide open, I haven't.
What was the bookend last year for the?
For whatever he was topped out. Whatever his rate was, that was the end bookend for that.
So it's just variable depending on what you.
Absolutely, and these changes too, because if you came in 1975, as the COLAs went up, that top end's going to go up too.
Yeah, the top end.
And it will, and it's going to do that now. That all makes a difference on what I do with my linemen, and where they line up. We are looking at that all the time, and sometimes the COLA isn't enough to get them back into space. We've been so creative on that we've got different steps and incentives depending on what they do in order to get them up to a competitive rate with KUB. And because of that, we haven't had the IBEW, although they're talking all the time to us, that hasn't been an issue with our people, because we absolutely transparently take care and making sure that their benefits are competitive and that their rate is competitive. But that is all done, and they know it. If you're an apprentice, that you know what you've got to do, you know how much time you have to have, and you know what you've got to complete in terms of paperwork towards your lineman certification.
So what do you have against doing this plan and going all the way from entry level to general manager with just what we said?
Take care of the general manager, but I take care of everybody else, and that I'm saying we already have. That's the part that I don't understand.
Well, I can say that I don't think any member of the board has ever seen anything that would let us know what the bookends were for Dan's job, for Dudley's job.
Well, I'm showing you this, but
Thanks, John.
the board's never asked for that.
Oh,
Maybe
Okay,
that's where we need. we need
It's
to
my
back up and
understanding
see
at the
that.
last
Maybe we need to
meeting
back up and get that
that
and
we were
see.
past
Maybe
this. We
sufficient.
voted on this,
That's what I was-
and that Greg has sole authority over everyone's salary. It was also my understanding at the last meeting that Greg made the comment that he had this in place. I don't recall if it was in the meeting as well as after the meeting. We had a conversation about it, and it was your intention at that time to share this with the board, and I do believe that you're going to do that. I don't know why we're still discussing the topic of salary whenever we have given Greg the authority to set that, and we've asked him to show that to us, and that's what he said that he would do.
And we have asked, are there any limits that we can put on Greg? Is there any, like that top end, is there any, does the board have any authority to put a maximum?
But why,
Level.
Charles? Why? Because we had a legal opinion, our CUB attorney say Greg has, and it's not
And-
Greg, it's whoever sits in
And
that
the
seat.
city attorney says that the board has that authority to
But why?
produce this
I
plan.
keep
And I'm-
going back to this, when I was
Why?
director of schools, my board did not tell me
But
what
you're
to
not,
do.
you're not director of schools now. But
I know, but
I'll give
listen-
you.
I don't
Listen.
understand why an
let me-
attorney's opinion was gotten after we voted on it at the last meeting.
Because the attorney didn't answer the question that we asked him. He gave a good answer, but he gave an answer as to what are Greg's.
Should that not have been discussed with the board to seek another attorney's opinion?
I answered that in an email to everybody immediately and said the question was not answered. What we wanted to know is what authority does the board have?
You answered that in the email that you sent the legal opinion that you had sought, right?
As soon as we got the one back from, but
Mr. Chairman, let me just, if I may, I don't think Greg has a problem with setting right and left lateral limits,
I've got them.
okay?
They're right there.
I
No,
don't think you, and I think that's what you're after.
that's what I'm asking. And
Okay,
I've been
so-
asking for years.
I get
Okay,
it.
do you not consider that bookends?
I have never seen that, and still, I haven't seen it, and
Well,
I haven't been any indication that it exists for Greg's direct reports, for upper management.
I think that, well, miscommunication can result into lots of things, oftentimes erroneous decisions, bad feelings, so on and so forth. I think that the spirit of what you're asking for is certainly legitimate. And I think anybody that runs an organization, it's welcome. I mean, you know, Penny saw and was bringing up something we have at the Anderson County Schools. And I think that exists.
Yeah, that's fine.
What you're asking is you want to see it and you want to ensure that it exists and that we are able to, you know,
And then to
we're
go-
able to judge how Greg's doing by being able to look, and that's a part of evaluating Greg. But I think, I mean, honestly, folks, we're all on the same page. We just got to get there and understand. Greg Fay has the authority to set these salaries. He has done so, and I think the board has a duty to make sure that, hey, we're in line and we're where we're supposed to be. We're not underpaying linemen and we're not overpaying linemen. I also think, again, that Greg, the general manager, should have an ability to, if he deviates one way or the other, that he can justify that deviation to the board, and I'm okay with that. So if somebody is, maybe they're underpaid, but Greg's got a perfectly good reason of why this person at this point in their career is where they are. I don't, and I think that's what you're trying to do. I think that's the spirit of what you're trying to capture. I don't want our people out there tonight to be worried, and I know that that's not the chairman's intent for you to worry. He's not going to be setting your salaries, and I think we're just all trying to get our arms around, you know, making sure that we're adhering to our fiduciary responsibilities. I think you got a question back there.
Yes,
Mr. Chairman, would you openly discuss your salary with us?
I'm retired now, but
You're sitting in front of a room full of ratepayers, voters, and hourly employees.
but city employees, I think the city employees' salaries are public, aren't they? Can't you? So I think anybody who works for a public utility or is in the city government, their salaries are known. They should be
A
known.
lot of talk of growing infrastructure. We want more houses, we want more people coming to our town. We see every single person that comes to this town. They set power with us, not you. This company is the best company I've ever worked for in my life. And I don't before I would listen to anything from Mr. Hollingsworth, I would pick it through with a fine-tooth comb. Because I've
Well-
personally been a victim of his business. Yes, I have.
The board management is directly responsible for the employees and for the ratepayers. The board, and all boards, not just this board, but all boards are responsible for looking after the interest of the owners. And in the owners, in a utility is, in our case, it's the city, as represented by the elected and appointed officials. So our job is we don't get involved, don't want to get involved in the individual salaries of people like that. What all of this meeting has been about. But it's our job to set limits.
That's not what your email said.
It's our job to see that things are reasonable, that they are compatible with the rest of the world. And the example I brought up, according to the way we do things now, if Greg wanted to bring in a replacement for Ernie and pay him $500,000, he could do that.
And we've said before, if that happened, that we would fire Greg.
But you wouldn't, because
Yeah,
Greg
we
has a
would.
contract that wouldn't allow you to fire him, but that's
Well-
beside the point. But
Mr. Chairman, as you said earlier, to make it more businesslike, to set these median brackets
Yeah.
of higher and lower limits. I don't know why we're really so concerned about our general manager setting our salaries. You know, the board sets his salary and then he takes care of everything else. Just a few years ago, and a little background on myself, my name's Jason. I started out in the water and sewer department. I was an apprentice lineman, I was a journeyman lineman, now I'm a field engineer. And I've had a really good career here at CUB. Just a few short years ago, there was a lot of talk of why are we hemorrhaging linemen? Why can we not keep linemen here? Well, I mean, they were getting paid a certain rate, and it didn't stack up to other utilities. I mean, it was close, but it wasn't close enough. And so then internally, by our general manager, we start looking at things that, so what do? We improve our retirement. We, increase their salaries. We buy better equipment. What do we need to do to keep these linemen? Well, and then the next question asked is, well, why is KUB, because that's where they were going, is why is KUB sucking these linemen up? Well, because these guys that's wearing the khaki shirts are cross-trained. They can do underground, they can do overhead, they can do secondary, they can do substation, they can do anything. Transmission, you name it, they can do it. KUB's not that way. They're individualized. And so, of course, when they get the opportunity, they're gonna suck them up. Because, I mean, these guys can do anything. And I hope I didn't misunderstand when you said you wanted to make it like the city. Because an electrical lineman, and I've done, I've put up hay, I worked for UPS, Lovell Trailers. I've done a lot of different hard work, but line work by far is the hardest job I've ever had to do in my life. And if you don't believe me, I can give you a 10-foot cross arm, 40 pounds of number 2 ACSR, a set of climbing tools, a chainsaw, and some sleeves, and send you up the side of a ridge 600 yards, and that's just to get to the work.
Well-
And so,
and
And I feel
that's not it.
No,
And there's a lot of
That's
scared
not
stuff
why
out
we're
there.
here.
No, wait.
That's why we're here.
In the South, yeah, but the
But
issue
Chairman,
is not anywhere
what
with
I'm
you.
trying to say is Greg was the one, our general manager was the one that adjusted the pay and made things a lot better now, and why we're keeping the workforce that we've got.
People want to stay now, they want to come.
But when we did the salary surveys, there were only 3 or 4 jobs that were out of line with the rest of industry, and it was none of you guys. I mean, there was never, so, when we're wanting structure,
Well, I think my point was to that entire conversation is I can't speak to the upper level management. I don't know what he pays them, I don't know how he decides what he pays them. But the job he did with these guys would indicate to me that he's trustworthy to do it with those guys. And I don't see what the problem is.
Let's see these other people that want to speak here.
yeah.
You had mentioned that, in your proposal, that you were wanting to use the salary surveys, okay? I really think that's a dangerous road to go down, because, even Jason made the point here, these guys wearing the khaki shirts can do more than one thing. How many other utilities that you're including in this survey have guys that can do that? First of all.
And it said
sec-
primarily
secondly-
use, it didn't say
secondly-
exclusively use.
Secondly, other positions within the company are hybrid positions, okay? A little over a year ago, we unfortunately lost our human resources supervisor, okay? I was approached at that point to say, hey, is that an additional role that you can take on? So, in conversation with other utilities that I deal with, in my positions that I serve here, my title here is administrative supervisor. There is no other utility that I know of that has an administrative supervisor, somebody that works in HR, somebody that works in purchasing, and somebody that works with the facility management to make sure that the contracts on the heating and air are executed properly and that work is getting done. How can you compare that in a survey to other utilities
And,
around?
and that's why you wouldn't exclusively use a survey. You would have the flexibility, Greg would have the flexibility to, whatever your job title is, to put that job title, you know, in the pay grade that he thought it should go into.
But I think what he's saying is that's what he already has.
I'm so over this
I'd just like to see
conversation.
what
Yeah.
Greg has, and we may be done.
Yeah,
It is. It is moot. We've already established Greg sets your salaries, at least in my mind.
yeah.
Greg sets your salaries, not Chairman Price, not Zach Fair. Greg's already got you guys bracketed. Greg's gonna get that information to Charles. We're all gonna go home and have a good night. And you guys are gonna do great work and continue to do the fine, outstanding job that each and every one of you does. And so your fears, which are very real, because I know you're here, 'cause you're concerned, will be addressed. You know, you need to have confidence in your supervisors and in your peers and in your general manager and in your leadership. And understand, and I'm speaking for Chairman Price, his intent is not to, this is not his intent. This worry and this anxiety, which is very real, or otherwise you got better things to do too. So I want to, as a board member, alleviate your concerns, your worries, because I think it's valid. If somebody told me, hey, look, this wild man, Chairman Price, is getting ready to cut our salaries, I'd be here too. You got families, you got children, you know, you've got mortgage payments, debts, and it's a very real thing. Many of us live paycheck to paycheck, and the thought of losing $1 goes a long way. And so what Chairman Price has actually proposed sounds like it's already been done. Right, Greg?
Yes, sir.
So I think at this point, we'll let everybody speak. Just, why don't we just table it, or matter of fact,
Yeah, it can be over.
why don't you table it pending, you know, getting Greg's information, or rescind the motion and just take it off the table. I wouldn't even table it, I would rescind it. That's
We voted, Charles, last month that we.
And with that, I gotta take a health and comfort break. I'll be back.
To calm the waters. We do. We've got one, the board has one employee, Greg Fay. We set his salary, but we voted that Greg has our blessings
We
to
did a
do
resolution.
everybody else's.
Yeah, that he could hire, yeah, and that's right. And all we're saying, all we've ever said is that the board has the authority to put some restrictions on, especially the higher levels. You know, I really don't want to get into specific numbers, but, you know.
Mr. Chairman,
Yeah,
I
go ahead.
don't understand the ongoing interest in our wages when all these accomplishments that's been mentioned, which you're aware of, and we still have among the lowest rates in the valley. So if anything, I would think we'd all get a raise.
There really was none of this particular thing had anything to do with any of you. It's,
Why are you still asking him to present these, wage ranges for all these positions? You can't change it, it's his, you've agreed that it's his right, and he's doing it. So why does he have to produce any more paperwork to you?
we're, the positions that were of concern were not any of your positions. It was the higher level positions because they were out of line with other
Did you not
utilities.
just ask for every position here? You just asked for that, he's supposed to provide that. And why is he interested?
Well, if I'd known he already had it, I wouldn't have asked for it.
Why should he have it
He's
at all?
told us that multiple times. As a matter of fact, we talked about it last meeting.
I've been on this board a long time, and I've never seen anything that
The
resembles
subject
this.
should be dead.
Mr. Chairman,
Yeah,
whenever you started talking, you said something about putting a cap on everybody's salaries. Now, that means I'm already topped out, so I'm gonna be making what I make now, but these guys that's lower than me, if you put a cap on their salary, they're not gonna
No.
make what I make.
a cap
Well,
means a
then
higher
you
level.
start taking away our cost of living raises that we usually get, and you can take them away, sure. But if you start taking them away after a couple of years, you ain't gonna have a line crew
We,
anymore.
we can't
You
take
won't have a
them,
water department anymore.
we can't take them away. Again, what is being presented to you, or the perception that you're getting is just wrong.
Well, you may not give us future cost of living adjustments. That's what the concern is also.
Yeah.
Might want to hold us down.
That's really not, the board doesn't do that.
It appears to be your intent.
No, the intent just,
In fact, you said we were overpaid.
not you. Not any of you. That's why I said, not anybody here.
But you're going after the man that controls my salary. That controls me, you're saying that he makes too much.
And you blatantly disrespect
And-
a former employee of ours. Ernie Bowles was and is
We're
a good
family here,
employee
you know?
of City.
Ernie's a friend of mine. I go to football games with
And
him.
you're calling upon our general manager to bring up his wages.
No,
Why?
I'm not bringing them. I've gone to a lot of trouble to not bring them up.
You blatantly asked him for that information, and he must have not got that email like they didn't get theirs, because he didn't have that information provided to you.
I don't know what you're saying, but
You asked him a question that he couldn't answer on purpose. Why?
ask me again. I really don't understand what you're saying.
Why did you ask our general manager for information about a previous employee that is no longer employed here? for the-
My point was that I did not think he had the structure that we're asking for, the minimum, the midpoint, and the maximum for that position. Because I've,
Personally with Ernie, he was worth every dime he was paid. Or more. Just like Mr. Hill.
yeah.
Based on what these gentlemen described as far as the experience that they've had, different jobs that they do, from lineman to inside, who in this room knows more about what they have done and what they can do? General manager. Please let him manage. Let him manage the utility. He's one of
Agree with that. My name's Mike. I've been living here since 2004. And I listen to everybody talk. Don't let it get personal. Somebody told me that earlier, it's gonna turn into a headhunt the other way around. Sorry, I've had pneumonia. I understand your concern why the assistant manager was probably making 50 or 60, 70,000 more than the assistant manager from another company. Our assistant manager wasn't just an assistant manager. That man,
He done 3 jobs.
he done 3 or 4 jobs
probably the smartest person I've ever met in my life. The structure that y'all are voting on now, that was his baby. That's part of his plan. Not only did he sit back and just manage a company, he'll manage an entire department. This company, safety manager, which he vamped that up over the last year and a half, 2 years. Now, that's what you're wanting to know, and that's what you're wanting to find out. So if you get that, you'd be satisfied. My concern is, in a couple of years, God forbid, he leaves or y'all vote him out and don't renew him, the next guy that comes in, is he gonna screw with our money? This is another concern.
Is that the agenda?
Is he gonna be able to come in and say, well, we don't like this, you know, I'm from the city, I don't get paid this, I don't get all this money, I'm gonna knock you guys back a notch. Is that something that we're gonna have to worry about?
All the
That's
board
my
needs to
concern.
have a documented
Yeah.
salary plan that puts that in the bank for you all. If it's a documented plan that says, your job, this is the rates range within it's in, then nobody's gonna come in and change that
They can't come back in and amend.
without the board approving
Yeah.
some change for some reason.
Right, but then if the board all of a sudden decides, and it may not even be you all, it could be someone else that's got a pet peeve against CUB. Well, yeah, I motion to knock their pay back $10 an hour, $15 an hour.
But you always have that threat. I mean, you can't,
Okay, well, just as long as it's kept in mind, the extra work that we do, because no one else works the way we do. No, I'm not, I'm not, you know, KUB workers, you know how they suck us up, they want us so bad, because we work our hind ends off, they know. what
and
we
you're
gotta do.
well-trained. I mean, that's.
Exactly, we're the
yeah.
best trained linemen
Yeah.
in this part of the country, I just feel that way.
Let me,
It's true.
Mr. Chairman,
But also,
let me
what I'm
just
saying is,
waste a few
your
words.
quality of work from us, when you start, in the future, if it happens, you start knocking money down, we're not gonna give you that extra.
Yeah,
There's a
let's-
reason you get the extra from us and you get your power back on.
Let me
Mr.
address
Combs
that.
talk.
And it's his payments.
I mean, the whole purpose of this is to make sure there's a plan that protects you all and pays you appropriately.
Right.
We started out, my first month maybe on the board, with a proposal that we spend $10,000 for a professional salary survey, which would look at every job and give it the credit it deserves for everything it does and is responsible for. Now, that got shot down and we never got to do it. So we don't have the right sort of information to really evaluate a salary plan. All we've got is comparisons to other utilities that have a number.
But now
And
that-
that's not a reasonable way to do a salary plan. But again, the bottom line on this was to have a documented plan that pays you guys everything you deserve and need for what you do and keeps that under control and gives Greg the ability to say, we've got a good system and these guys are paid for what they're worth. That's where all this was going, guys.
Mr. Chairman.
Could I make a comment? Maybe we can wrap this up,
Okay.
and you can then tell me if I'm wrong. I love that you're here. Thank you so much. And you're going to get to speak. But let me try to encapsulate this just a minute. Thank you for I am shocked and overwhelmed, and I love you, and you know that. Let's be clear. The board has a CEO, and that's me. And that is the employee that they evaluate, and part of my evaluation is how you all do your job, and part of it is what you get paid. And we've been doing that together for many, many years. You all are well paid, not because this is CUB, it's because of the job that you do. Because we can look around and there's a lot of people that we don't see anymore because they didn't come up to that standard. You deserve every cent that you get, and your contribution to CUB is greater than what we pay you in terms of salary and benefits. You're contributing more than you're taking out. And I love you for that. And that's why when the folks at the front counters and customers come in and they see Tanya behind it is a wonderful experience. Go somewhere else and see if you find that. So do you get paid more than somebody else? You bet. Because I want that level of service and I'll pay you for that. If you go to customer service and you've got a problem, do you get interaction? Exactly. When you're out in the field, are you getting that kind of service? You are. And I'm just saying, I'm just not trying to take it. The boys in the water and sewer, I mean, we've had torrential floods, and we had 5 people that called in, and I met with each one individually. Did a fantastic job making that stuff disappear. I really appreciate it. And I have been at that substation at 1:30 in the morning when the wind chill factor is below 0 and somebody's up in a bucket trying to crank that thing down. It's just amazing what you do. Do you justify what you get paid? You better believe it, and more. You are given a gift to what we do. Now, rest assured, and this is where they'll have a chance to object. As long as I'm here, you're going to get paid what you deserve, irrespective of what the people are making at Ishan, irrespective of what the people are making in Harriman or KUB or anything else. I pay you what I think that you're worth, and you're worth a lot. And we got $8 or $9 million worth of debt, where our neighbors that we've been referred to are hundreds of millions of dollars in that. Our rates are lower than anybody around, and with Flizzr, we've got the best thing going in terms of reliability. Anywhere in the country, I'll go up against Chattanooga, is the only thing close to us doing what we're doing. I'll pay you what you're going to get, what you're worth, and I feel like the board will support in that. It's not unreasonable, but I've never been asked for it. But it's not unreasonable for them to see how the evaluations that are being done, the starting levels, and how we go, because we know we lowball you coming in. For those new ones, you get lowballed, because if you're no good, I don't want to waste any time with you. So after 3 months, we hit you. After 6 months, where in a year you're raised 4 times, because if you're worth anything, I'm going to reward you for that. So at the end of the day, do you get a good wage? You do, and that's why you're here. That's why you're here. I wouldn't trade any one of you, and when good ones come up, we want to bring them in. Now, I'll take care of your money. I'll protect, because we can justify the benefits. The board has 1 employee, that's me. They can adjust my salary. I'm under contract. It's the way the chairman put it. My salary's safe until next year. And then they have an opportunity to either let me go or to renew my contract. That's it. So I'm feeling pretty protected for a year anyway. So let them take care of me, and I'll take care of you. If I give them these bookends, and you deserve more than what that top end is, you're going to get it, because it's a guideline. And that's the way I'll look at it. When we try to replace Ernie, which we can't do, with 1 person that I know of, I may have to get 3, but when we do that, they're going to get paid appropriately for whatever it is that the skill set that they bring in and the contribution that they make. That's the way I see my job. That's the way I've always seen it. I'll take care of the money, and then they'll evaluate me on that. But I've never been asked to see these things, so it's always been there, as you know, for the 20 years that I've been manager. So unless the board sees something different about my authority to pay what I think is appropriate, and in the fact that as being a good manager, you have evaluations, and you have a known entry level and a known mid level and a known end level, and then differences when they don't match up, when the skill set doesn't match up to the job title. So if I had another title that I could have called Ernie, I would have called him that, But there'll be other folks coming on and I'll take care of it. So do I misunderstand? Because that's what I think I've understood from last month. You'll get all that I have, which is plenty on these caps. And when I hire another engineer or promote as a director of engineering operations, I'll give you that information too, you know. But as long as there's an understanding that I have the flexibility to make adjustments to this cap and that cap, I don't think that we're all on the same page. So do I understand that correctly? And if I don't, then there's probably more discussion that we need to have.
No, from my standpoint, if we could get the structure that you're talking about, and especially, you know, for the higher ranks, we obviously don't know anything about the work the lineman does and the
You're fine.
senior lineman and the apprentice and all that.
Well, you don't know what the higher ranks do either, Charles. It's that's my point there. But I do have that information for you.
As long as the board is provided with that, as long as we have that information, then I think that's all that's ever
great.
been asked for.
We have a gentleman that's been waiting for a long time.
I know.
I promise I have. Patience for trying. My name's Dale Hatmaker. I'm a journeyman lineman, serviceman here at CUB. I've been here 10 years. I came from Florida, was already a lineman when I came. Thankful for what this job has provided me, thankful for my family, more importantly for what this job has been able to provide for my family. Me, I'm not so concerned about. President Theodore Roosevelt once said the best leader is the one who has sense enough to pick good men to do what he wants done, and the self-restraint to keep from meddling with them while they do it. If I step on any toes, I'm sorry, but I consider y'all his leader, because he answers to y'all, just like we answer to him ultimately. Can you put up the minutes from last, Dudley, can you put up the minutes from last time?
Sure.
Where it said that about the wholeheartedly supporting me?
Right
Talk
there
about
it is.
this resolution
There
here.
it is, yeah.
Be it resolved by the Board of Directors of the Clinton Utilities Board that the board supports Greg Fay in hiring and setting salary and has the board's full confidence and support. What I'm hearing coming from you, Mr. Chairman, is that you don't trust him and you didn't vote for that.
I did vote for that.
Well, your actions and your verbiage don't say that.
Well, that's-
Because you're asking him to justify everything he does. Either you trust him or you don't. When you voted that, you're shaking your head no, is that you don't trust him? Or you
No, I'm saying that's not right what you're saying.
It's not right?
No.
Why is
No.
that?
The fact that you want to have reasonable limits, guidelines, bookends, set on something that the company, that the city, that everybody can endorse.
If someone in your family was stricken with a neurological condition, the only person that could save their life was Dr. Ben Carson, who ran for president, world-renowned neurologist, probably one of the best. If you had to finance everything you had in order to save that family member, would you?
Oh, yeah, of course you would. I mean,
Okay,
but
I just want to hear that.
Yeah.
I'm not assuming anything. Maybe you don't get along. I don't know. Maybe somebody went along. I don't know. But here's the thing. You pay for what you get. If you want the best, there's even TV commercial ads right now about it. The car guy, he walks in there and wants his brakes worked on. Are you a good brake guy? I'm okay. We've got a saying around here that the car, if brakes don't stop it, something will. If you want the best, you have to pay for the best. You don't buy a Mercedes-Benz for Volkswagen prices. And the reason you want the Mercedes-Benz is because of the quality and the reliability. can't have, you can't keep pushing and pushing and pushing, and we hear all this talk about how you want to embellish the community, and how you want to grow the community, and how you want this, and where do you think our money gets spent?
Yeah, and we
The money
want
gets
more of
spent.
you. We want more of you in here doing that.
Okay, well,
Yeah.
yeah, that's great, but in the same instance, you're teetering on two sides of the fence here. You stated right there, you voted for full confidence and support. Did you pass this budget for this past year that shows how much people are gonna be paid?
We passed the budget for this year. It didn't show how much people were going to get paid, but we don't get into that detail.
If you have this, if you're giving your full confidence and support, then you need to have a clause in there that you voted for, that we giving full confidence and support on some things, but not everything.
We give them full confidence and support, but we still reserve the right to ensure that there are reasonable limits on big things.
How much is it worth for a free agent by someone out in the sports industry when somebody really, really wants them? You know why they get them? Because they pay more money. If you want the best, you gotta pay for the best. That goes all the way from the linemen that are here, all the way up to mid-management, senior management, and grade.
If I may.
Yeah.
Just step in here for just a second. And I want to give some commentary. Obviously, you guys do a great job, and the people in the city appreciate that. I appreciate it. I own a business in the city, I own a house in the city, and I know the job that you do. The board does have fiduciary duty. They have to go, and they have a legal responsibility to oversee everything, and they do have a right to ask questions. But I don't think that any of that is the issue. What I see as an issue, and this is the first meeting that I've attended, is a real lack of communication on a lot of things all along in this board. This type of discussion is absolutely wonderful. When I come here as a developer, I've invested a tremendous amount in this community, right? And what I want to see is everybody kind of working on the same page, good communication. When I see this, I get really worried. Do I want to spend more money here? Do I want to see these people? I want to see people working together. And that's all of our responsibilities to make that happen. It's great to hear the discussion about how good you guys do, because it's real obvious. It's great to hear your manager talk about how much he loves you and how much he wants to pay you, and that's his responsibility to go off and do that. But we all have a responsibility to communicate better together with us and present a face outside to everyone that's looking to come in here to take a part of this community that we're growing. They need to be able to see the communication that's going on. That's your responsibility to work with the board to make sure that that happens. That's the board's responsibility to work together inside that to make it happen. And I didn't see a lot of that tonight. So I think this whole meeting has been and I didn't see also the communication between the developers in the board, and I got a lot of finger pointing about, well, somebody worked with the board, somebody didn't work with the board. That needs to stop if you want to grow the city of Clinton. If you want to grow the city of Clinton, you want to see it really happen, you want to see the parks going in across the way, you want the new Green Bridge, you need to have these types of communications. Sometimes the communications are hard. Sometimes they hit really hard issues. But I think this community is worth it. I think you all have it inside of you to go off and do it. And I think as hard as this meeting is, this has been a great first step for CUB and the board and the other members, Scott, I know Scott is here, in making that happen. So I just want to applaud all of you for coming here and taking part and participating in the community, because that's what it takes to make it better.
Mr. Chairman, at this point, I mean, I think we've beaten the hell out of a dead horse. Your point is very well taken. Your comments are very well received, very well articulated. And again, I want to say all your concerns are, but I think they're elevated to a point beyond, and I understand it's a misunderstanding, miscommunication, absolutely. Greg already has what this gentleman to my right's asked for. This gentleman to my right's already said Greg gets to set the salaries. We started there. I think it's therapeutic for you guys to be able to talk to us, and I welcome everybody being here. I like to not find that young man in a dark alley. He looks like he's a big fella. And so I would ask, Mr. Chairman, respectfully, that you, given everything that's transpired, given everything that's been said, that we respectfully, that you withdraw your motion at this time, and that's up to you.
The motion, I will withdraw the motion, and Greg has agreed to provide the board with the information that we've asked for about the salary ranges, especially for the higher levels. Again, that's the only part that the board really sees, other than getting reports on really what a good job everybody does out there as far as reliability and the cost of things. So.
Mr. Chairman, I have one more question before you hit that gavel, because it's time to go.
Well, go ahead.
Is it a regulation that everybody have a beard at CUB? Because I see there's a trend out there.
Mr. Combs has a last comment here also.
One last comment about salary plans in general. The whole purpose of that really is to protect you guys and to protect the people who pay the money to you. I have every confidence in the world that Greg is going to pay all of you guys what you're worth because he knows you.
I wouldn't be any different with upper management.
This is an all-inclusive statement, okay? All of y'all. Now, I'm probably comfortable when I found out now for the first time that there's actually a documented plan that lays all this out. From your perspective, you've got the best guy in the world to make sure you get paid what you're worth. Day after tomorrow, if he decides to run off to the Bahamas and live, and you get somebody new in here who doesn't give a flip about you all, if you don't have a documented plan that says, here's what my job should be paid, you don't have any guarantees that you're going to be paid that day after tomorrow. So it's important to have a documented plan that protects you guys and guides whoever's going to make salary determinations about you.
Mr. Combs, I went through cancer and had 2 children, and in the process, raising a family, with a nice house, and never missed a meal. And personally, I don't feel like we needed extra protection, or anything put in place to protect us. And like Mr. Ferris said, some of us live paycheck to paycheck. I don't think anybody in this room lives paycheck to paycheck. And we're not worried, I don't think, about what's going to happen tomorrow, because we're all qualified people. We're journeyman linemen, we're engineers. We can find jobs other places. We're just here to support our manager.
Greg has built an organization based on identifying quality people and paying them for what they do. Now, if Greg left tomorrow, I'd hate to see that disassembled. I'd like to see some document that protects what they're getting paid for their value to stay in place to guide the next manager.
I just didn't want the consensus to be that we were all terrified that we were going to lose our job or lose our pay.
Well, that's what's been represented to us at times, is that morale's all time low and everybody's jumping. Okay.
Well,
Okay.
the chairman did not like the answer that came back from the attorney. He went to another attorney to get a different answer, and he had said in the last meeting or a couple meetings ago, he thought we were overpaid. And so the agenda is to dig into that and to maybe reduce or limit salaries. And so if he does present this range to you for all these positions, are you saying that you're gonna approve it so it'll be set in stone? If he leaves, the next employees would be under that, you have to approve what he gives you? Is your base if he leaves?
I'm not sure I understand your question, but, the boards change from time to time. And then it's what Steve was saying. The more that you have in place that's documented and it's part of the company, part of the personnel system, the better protected you are, because things are going to change. Greg is going to leave, this board is going to change out, and you still want to have the structure in place that's here now, that's working now.
I'm going to say that with the salary schedule that was up with the school system, I came from the school system, and something that you alluded to is lack of communication. And I do think that is something that we've talked about in many meetings in the past, is the lack of communication between the board and the community and CUB. And I do think that whenever you have a salary scale like that, as a teacher, when I was looking for a job, I looked at that. I wanted to see where could I go and make the most money and know that I was going to have a good job. I don't think that that's such a bad idea. I think it's the way that's being presented. And I want to go on record right now to say, from the people who are working at the front desk to the people that are mopping the floors, to the linemen, to the upper management, I appreciate everything that you do. And I've said before, when I'm at home on Christmas Day and my lights flicker, I don't worry. Because I know that you all are out there taking care of that. And I'm not originally from here. I've been here 25 years. I can't think of a time that my electricity's been off more than an hour, 2 at the most. Or my water, I'm sorry. Or my water. Now, I will say my water bill is out the roof, but I have 3 teenage boys at my house. But I want to go on record saying thank you for all that you do, from the heat to the cold that you suffer through and everything else.
Hear, hear.
And for also putting up with this.
Does anyone else have a closing comment that they would make? I think we're square on everything from sewer pumps to salary plans. So,
Thank you.
meeting adjourned.